so crazy, living life gets hard to do. And I would gladly hit the road, get up and go if I knew that someday it will lead me back to you. That someday it will lead me back to you. You may be old, I knew. In darkness she is so. Rest your bones with me. Driving slow on Sunday, and I never want to leave. Figure sheds your every outline. Paint a picture with my hands. Back and forth this way like branches in a storm. Think the weather's still together when it ends. And things they get so crazy, living life gets hard to do. And I will gladly hit the road, get up and go if I knew that someday it will lead me back to you. Oh, that someday it'll lead me back to you. You may be old, I need. In darkness she is so. I see. Come and rest your bones with me. Driving slow on Sunday morning, and I never want to leave. Things it get so crazy, living life gets hard to do. And I would gladly hit the road, get up and go if I knew. Oh, that someday it will lead me back to you. Someday it will lead me back to you. In darkness she is so. I say, so come and rest your bones with me. Driving slow on Sunday morning, and I never want to leave.
I don't want to. That's what I'm trying not to do.
That was the first. Excuse me, five.
I'm like trying not to do. Great. Oh, look at you. She 5 months.
4.
4 months.
Almost 5. 5 months, 26. Yeah. You can't grab it if it falls, but she's gonna say, "You look so untidy, Tyrone." Look at your hair.
Yes, it's true, I'm not good at a one-night stand. I still need a help just to bend.
son on TV. I saw it and I was like, what the? So cute, man. Yeah, he would be. Why am I so emotional? It's not a good look and some self-control. No, this never works. I'm just here to sing.
Sure, I don't know. She read the book.
Oh, I'm just here to sing. Oh, it's a woman. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's it. Won't you stay with me? 'Cause you're all I need. This ain't love, it's clear to see. Yeah, darling, stay with me. Won't you stay with me? 'Cause you're all I need. This ain't clear to see. Yeah, darling, stay with me. Won't you stay with me?
Can we do it?
I used to know it. I don't know it anymore. Also, can't reach that.
You always do Elvis. don't you?
Why? I actually should.
Are you losing tonight? I mean, it's sad, but
Yeah, it's a good song. I like Fever. I should have known. One shot. Oh, how
what
about
about
song?
Samoan songs?
I don't know what it sounds. I would have played one already.
You could live in Samoa and you could just play
Yeah, but
songs.
everybody plays that one song that sounds. I'm honestly all about it.
Yeah. Or even like, you know, talking about
I don't know either. I don't have Jack Johnson.
Go then. Blake, no. Blake? Blake?
No, I know Taylor.
Take photos of the memories.
Can't you see, can't you see? Rain or dead and I don't mind. Wait, babe, you are leaving me. What I'm trying to show you. Song is meant to keep up doing what you're supposed to. Like wake it up to her. Maybe we should sleep. They can put out a blanket. Pretend like there's no world outside. We can pretend it all the time. Yeah. Can't you see it's just rain? can't you see? We're no dating, I don't mind. Baby, you rock a ukulele. I'm a lady, baby. I really don't mind the breakfast. Oh, my little lady. Lady, lady, love me, 'cause I love to lady lazy. We can close the curtain, pretend like it's the weekend now. We can pretend it all the time. Can't you see it's just raining? There ain't no need to go outside. Ain't no need, ain't no need, ain't no need. Do, come on. Can't you see, can't you see? We're no dating, I really, really, really don't. Telephone keeps singing, ringing, it's too early, don't pick it up. We don't need to, we got everything we need right here, and everything we need is enough. Oh, it's funny when the hunger inside of your arms don't pay attention to the alarm. Where it looks low, where he goes low.
I like that. Oh, that one thing. How about, oh, no, you can do whatever.
Tell me, when will you be mine? Tell me cuando, cuando, cuando you can share our love divine. Please don't make me wait again. When will you say yes to me? Tell me cuando, cuando, cuando and happiness to me. Oh, my love, please tell me when. Every moment today, every day seems a lifetime. Let me show you Oh, wow.
I'm looking for E.T.
E.T. I haven't seen
You
him.
know, he's here talking because we're gonna start.
Oh, yes, I'll stop.
I'll put this in a few minutes.
Ah.
About 2 minutes.
We should start. One time, the late Hans Joachim Joe Kyle was about to put on the biggest show ever in front of the government house of Samoa. Half an hour through before they start, there was no MC of the show, but the front of the government house was packed. Being a dear friend of the late Joe Kyle, he spotted me, called me and said, "Son, I want you to go upstairs and start the protocol." No hesitation. I said, "Yes, I will." This is half an hour before they start the biggest show. This morning when I walked in, one of Joe's brother greeted me at the door and did exactly the same. "Son, I want you to go up there and start the protocol." The protocol is not on the program. My name is not even on the program. But let me say this. Because the book is called Germans in Samoa, and everybody is seated here, I'm assuming that you got something to do with Samoa. And the occasion is done in Afale, Samoa. It is only very appropriate that we start with the protocol of the Fa Samoa. My name is Tui. I have just been appointed recently to conduct the protocol of the Fa Samoa. Mātou whātulou I le malu nei. I le paia ua sasau I le mau tau Samoa. A whio maia, tala maia o ao. O le paia tele ia tu mua mapule. O I tu au ma la taua, a inga I le tai ma le vaa o whanoti. Tama mainga, o a inga fo I matama. Paia tele ia sua ma le vai whanua, o fofo mai tūlangi, sa ole masale o mua malelau niu na sailua. A whio mai matala mai ao le paia I leo whainga renga. O le mawe se o le tātua tunu, o wō ma au mema mai, e whito I tonu iai le nei wha moe moe. A whio maia, tala mai o ao, se su mai, mama liu mai. Basically what I was saying, good morning, and welcome to this very special occasion. Ona o le porkalame, o le amatele I le whaperetania, o le melea, o le tele o atato wha asalonga mamalo wha arorongia, o le arato wha ngaina le ngangana peletania e wha amalamala mai le autu le so. I have just completed the protocol. May everybody enjoy the rest of the program. And now hand over the microphone to Violet. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Violet Kyle. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Whaftai lava, whaftai tele lava iti taua lapini, also known as iti. We appreciate the formalities, and we do like to begin the program with that. I am Joe Kyle's eldest daughter. Sitting over there on the right-hand side are my two sisters, Bella and Katrina, and then in the back, the greeter is Nathan Kyle. And I'll introduce other family members as we go. But for now, we'd like to ask William Tui Kyle to please come up and say our opening prayer.
Unser lieber Vater im Himmel, wir danken dir für die Gelegenheit, dass wir aus Familie, Verwandte und Freunde zusammenkommen können, um dieses Buch-Launch durchführen. Deutsche im Samoa. Dieses Buch hast been vorbereitet bei Cashier Cook und wir danken dir für alles. Unser Vater im Himmel, wir danken dir sehr, dass wir alle die Gelegenheit haben, hier zu sein. Wir bitten dich, dass wir deinen Geist haben, damit wir Freude und Freude erlangen können, zusammen zu sein. Wir beten dich, alles, was wir brauchen. Im Namen Jesu Christi. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Well, that was beautiful. Thank you very much. This is my dad's brother, Wilhelm Kyle. And then we would like to, on the program, my mom is supposed to speak now, but we'd like to invite our, Her Excellency, the German Ambassador to New Zealand, Miss Nicole Mesenbach.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? Talofa lava, warm Pacific greetings und guten Morgen. Thank you so much for inviting me to this book launch. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Not only, this is an important event, not only because this book launch is a culmination of years of tireless research and therefore a very special moment to witness, but also because it's a great opportunity for me to learn about the history and stories of German settlers and their descendants in the Pacific. I'm also very grateful that I can use my presence here to connect with the Samoan community here in Auckland, a lively and dynamic and important diaspora. And I already met so beautiful people here, so I'm so grateful and so happy that you are sharing this moment with me. So I'm looking forward to explore what we can do together, using your knowledge and resources between Samoa, Germany, and New Zealand. Reading how Germans have shaped Samoa's history and how Samoa has shaped their individual stories in turn has impressed me. I was equally impressed thinking of the endless hours you, Kezia, must have spent digging through dusty archives and full of long-forgotten newspapers and records and letters to reconstruct their stories. Thanks to your work, we have gained better understanding of ways in which the formation of modern Samoa has been interwoven with trajectories of the German settlers. I'm very pleased to read that German engineers, architects, administrators have not only had an influence on Samoa, but that this influence was of a kind that Samoans continue to identify with. This, as we all know, is rare in the colonial context, of which also the German settlements in Samoa are part of. I'm therefore more than grateful for your work of uncovering these hidden stories that illustrate the mixed identity which has always characterized Samoa and to which Germans have contributed. As the German ambassador to Samoa, It is my brief to continue building Germany's strong relationship with Samoa. I must add that I haven't yet traveled to Samoa because I haven't presented. Okay, I'm sorry. I hope you. It's better. So, so I'm the German secretary of Samoa. So the German embassy to Samoa yet because I haven't presented my credentials. So credentials is that you are, officially invited to be the German ambassador. So I'm really looking forward to this. But what I've learned is that from the Pacific, that it's important that you are there and you need to be present in the Pacific. And from my experience, so I feel very welcomed, and there's a great openness and a great welcoming, and so it's a great privilege to be the German ambassador here to 6 Pacific Island states. So Germany and the German embassy runs a number of projects in Samoa, primarily aimed at helping to support and revitalize school infrastructure on the island. In these and in other endeavors, we are strongly supported by our honorary consul, Krista Czegedy. Maybe somebody of you know her. So Krista Czegedy and her son Stefan. So thank you again to Dr. Kezia Cook for realizing this project and creating this research for German Samoans to explore their roots and get to know their heritage. I would also like to express my deep respect to the late Hans-Joachim Joe Keil III, who passed away sadly in 2018. But I've met some of his brothers and his family, and so thank you very much again for having me and for inviting me. I hope that this event will help to further Samoan German connections and exchanges in the same way that the book it's only a starting point for further research on the legacy of Germans in Samoa. So, vielen Dank, and thank you so much, and thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So beautiful lady to go with such a beautiful title. I'm the next one on the program. It's supposed to be my mom, Celine Kyle. Many of you know her. She married my dad. And she was supposed to be here today, and I'm so grateful to all the family and friends that have come today to help support this. So if you could she wrote a speech, and I'm sorry she's not here to tell you herself, but I've got to read it in her sweet voice, which is very difficult. Okay, it says, "Good morning, honorable guests. Good morning, dear family and friends. I believe the German ambassador will be attending our book launch. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, Nicole. It means a lot to us and would have meant more to Joe, believe me. Thank you everyone for taking the time to attend during this busiest of weekends to celebrate this long-awaited book. You know Joe loved you all. How I wish I was there to personally give you a hug and thank you. Many of you were dear to Joe and you know who you are. Being there will be more time at this launch in New Zealand because we had a very short program in Samoa. She decided to write a long email. So being there will be more time at this launch in New Zealand, I'm going to make most of my 2.5 minutes or 10 to speak to you. Heaven help the daughter who reads it if she doesn't make a good job of it. She will have to reckon with me afterwards. She also needs to speed it up so she can give Keisha, the author, most of the time for her presentation. And you're in for a treat. Keisha, Mom said to take your time. And take as long as you want. Okay, our team has been working very hard these last few days to make this wonderful launch, and I hope it all goes well. As most of you already know, this book was a dream of Joe. He didn't dream of me, my mom, but a book, no less. That's what Mom said. Then he would write and complete when he retired. Sadly, it was not to be. He also had another book he planned to write, and it was titled A Special Boy Named Nathan Kyle. Nathan Kyle, please come here. And most of you know of this special bond between Joe and our sweet son, Nathan. Now one of our daughters has to fulfill that dream of their fathers in writing this book about his special boy. Come sit down. Okay, wait 1 second, honey. Okay, as the good Lord will have it, he put Keisha in Joe's path. When Joe knew that he would not be able to write this book, The Germans in Samoa, 1860 to 1914, he asked Keisha to do it, and thankfully Keisha caught the vision and took on the project. Keisha will elaborate on this in her presentation. When Joe passed away, I feared Keisha would give up. Thankfully, Joe had surrounded her with a team of people who continued to love, support, and encourage her, even while we mourn Joe's passing and during the difficult years of COVID-19. Keisha continued. The team includes our 3 daughters, myself, Ronya Violet Kyle, Nerita Bella Dutton, and then Katrina Lizzie Kyle. And our special Nathan, our only son, was a cheerleader because he was always so cheerful. The team also includes Joe's 2 younger brothers. Where's Uncle Kiso? Everybody, Wilhelm, August, Kyle, also known affectionately as Uncle Kiso, Herman Joseph, affectionately known as Mangi, who, over there, who planned this whole event with our cousin Kimmy, who planned the food. A close friend of the family, Jim Weiniger, who also passed away, who loves Samoa and all things pertaining to Samoa, history, culture, but especially its people, was also a great source of comfort and support to Keisha after Joe passed away. Then Keisha met her wonderful husband, Jared Flanagan, and he took on the mantle of love and supporting Keisha through this project. Thank you, Jared. We cannot forget a latecomer to the book project. Her name was Tracy, and she is not here. Kunitshika. Sorry, a professional editor. She helped to take the book to the finish line with the editing and a lot of formatting. And our printers too that helped with the formatting. Thank you to others who supported and cheered the team to its completion of this book. The Samoan Historical and Cultural Trust all helped with the editing, especially the Samoan words and names. They too kept encouraging Keisha to stay the course, and now we are celebrating this book. Many, many people to thank. This is Mom. How naive I am about books, even though it's one of my passions. It is also one of Joe's many passions. When Keisha was done with writing the book, we thought that that was it. Just print it as it is and it's done. But no, it took a lot of editing and a lot of formatting, which is just as important as writing the book, so that the pictures all matched up with the names that are in the book. Because when we first started, we're like, there's a name here and there's a picture there. And so we had to make sure the right names were married to the right pictures. And now you have a beautiful book to keep and pass on to your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and on and on. Happy Mother's Day to all you beautiful, strong, wonderful, long-suffering, nurturing women. Without you, there will be no one to pass this book on to. We hope you thoroughly get spoiled this weekend by your men and children. Aloha atu, Celine Kyle. And then Nathan wants to say a few words. Sit down. Come on.
I miss my dad and everybody knows he's here and I see he got found in New Zealand. We are all our cousins and sisters, all the uncles together. I miss my dad. Always there to see her. Because I'm 37 now, and a big boy and a nice work hard and I come here to get found like you did. And my uncle not okay me like this. He like has my dad say, my boy. That's my dad said, told me, say, and my dad sit down here and all my sisters, and my dad, he take me and say, go to the beach. You can go, the other beach. The other beach, go sleep. And say, and the book's coming out soon, and he sang it. My kids sang it. And I bought the envelope. You call me all your phone, call me my phone.
Okay.
Everybody knows.
Amen.
I love you to my family and sisters.
Thank you, Nathan. Yes, you mentioned something. Thank you. Okay, just quickly from me, is anybody that knew my dad knew that there was nothing in this world that could stop him from what he wanted to do. So when he came up with this vision, we were all like moonwalking out of the room, not us. And that's why he got Keisha Cook. We're like, thank you, Dad, but that sounds like a lot. The great thing about my dad is that when he has a vision, he also has an army of people to support him. And you're all sitting here today. Every one of you has supported us in many countless ways, whether encouraging words, being here, writing to us. The stories in this book come from people. And these are your ancestors. And these are people that we're celebrating today because they're amazing. They went halfway across the world to start a new life, and Keisha will do an amazing job with her talk today. There was a saying that I looked up, and I was gonna say that what would take my dad 5 months took us 5 years. That's how my dad worked. Not only did he want something, he wanted it right away. There was a quick saying, it says, if you don't know history, you don't know anything. You are a leaf that doesn't know it is part of a tree. And that was just something by Michael Crichton. I'd like to bring my sister Bella up to introduce our author today and friend, Keisha Cook.
Aloha, good morning. Can you hear me okay at the back? Okay. I think Nathan showed us that we need to put the microphone a little bit closer so that everybody can hear. All right, introduction to Keisha. Dr. Keisha Renee Cook is an award-nominated professional historian and author. Prior to working on Germans in Samoa, she spent more than a decade studying the history of Germans in Tonga. Keisha was born and raised in Idaho in the United States and earned a bachelor's degree with University honors in English and German studies from Brigham Young University. The exceptional depth and quality of her bachelor's thesis allowed her to be accepted directly into her doctoral program thereafter. Keisha completed her PhD in German at the University in Auckland in 2017. Her thesis on the German-Tongan diaspora was recognized in the top 4% of her class and earned her a nomination for the Vice Chancellor's Award of Best PhD Thesis of the Year. Her PhD research led her to working with Joe Kyle to complete his dream of compiling a history of Germans in Samoa. Keisha is married to Jared Flanagan of Fort Worth, Texas. They share his 2 daughters and have 1 child on the way. Keisha's work with families in Samoa and Tonga led her to form a personal history company in 2020 to help people record their own life stories for their families to treasure forever. She is grateful to the people of Samoa and Tonga for allowing her to hear and share their stories. Welcome, Keisha.
Hallo, einen schönen guten Morgen, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren und Freunde, liebe Freunde. Vielen Dank, dass Sie hier mit uns sind. We're very, very grateful. I'm so grateful. My heart is filled with love and gratitude to look out and to see all of you here with us today. Thank you for being here. Those of us who are joining on the live stream, we're also grateful for your presence and your interest in this book. Talafalava, thank you, Fafitai Lava, for being here with us today. I'm going to see if I can adjust this somehow. Do I need to hold this?
Yeah, you hold it.
Or put it right? Any way I can put that there?
Yeah, we'll take care of that.
Okay.
That looks like it's taped on.
Mhm.
I'll hold it for you.
That's okay. I can hold it. Okay. It's wonderful to be with you here today. As was mentioned, we Thursday evening, and that was a beautiful event and a wonderful opportunity to celebrate with those in Samoa who've contributed so much to this history. So this launch today is a continuation of that celebration and honoring Joe Kyle and his legacy and what he has done for us in providing this book for us. So today I'm going to start by talking about what the book actually contains, and first of all talk about Joe and how I came into this. As you can imagine, as a Palangi coming into Samoa, I get a lot of questions like, why are you here? What are you doing this for? And I have kind of a weird background, which was shared a little bit, but I fell into studying German history in Tonga and have a great love for Tonga and for the people of Tonga. And as I was doing my PhD, in the last year of my PhD in 2016, I was doing a comparative study between German Tongan descendants and German-Samoan descendants. Both countries have a very rich history of German presence. And I met Tony Brunt here in New Zealand, a wonderful researcher who has written a beautiful, beautiful book, I think 2 volumes of photographic history of Germans in Samoa. And he's told me when I get to Samoa, I should meet Joe Kyle because he would be the right person for me to talk to. And very well connected and all that. So I went to meet Joe at his office at TV3, and if you knew Joe, you knew that he was not a person to be interviewed or to answer questions if he didn't want to. And so the first thing that he did, of course, was interview me and ask me what I was doing there and who I was and all of that. And I told him a little bit about my work, and I told him about the work of my PhD supervisor, Professor Emeritus James Bade. He has written a book called Germans in Tonga, which was based on a work that was done here at the University of Auckland, compiling a database of all the Germans that lived in Tonga. And when I told Joe about this book, he got so excited. His eyes got so big, and I remember, and I've told this story, so you may have heard it, but he got his finger out and he said, I wanted to write that book about Samoa all my life, but it will be much bigger than the Tongan one. So I can report that it is quite a lot bigger. Not that there's any competition between Tonga and Samoa, but it is extensive. When we started this work, we started in 2018. Joe actually offered me that job right then in his office, the first time I met him in 2016. But I needed to finish my PhD, and I needed to go back to the United States, and wasn't sure what my life would hold after. But he stayed in touch with me. I got emails from him pretty regularly, every couple of months, checking in, seeing what I was up to, where I was at in the world. And when he got sick, he came to the United States for cancer treatment and was only a few hours from where I was. And so he asked to meet with me. I drove down to where he was in Utah, and we had a meeting, and he said, now's the time. We have to do this book. Will you do it with me? And the stars all aligned, and it worked out. I had no idea how sick he was, or that he was even sick, because again, nothing was about him, ever. And even today, if he were here, I know that he would make it about all of us, not about him. But since he's not here, we can celebrate him a little bit more. But I didn't know how sick he was, and he just kept telling me, we have to hurry, we have to hurry, we have to get this done. And he would say, this is my last legacy. I'm happy to hear that there's going to be another book about Nathan, so it's not Joe's last legacy, but we all have him to thank for this wonderful resource. It is about the families that we're celebrating today. That's why we're here, the people, the stories, and I'm going to share with you some of the stories as we go through today. But at the beginning, I just want to say Whawhetai lava to Joe, and thank you to him and to all. Violet, you did a wonderful job for your mom and naming everyone. There's so many that contributed. And beyond the list that Violet mentioned is all of the people who shared their stories with us. And I am personally so thankful. It's not easy to talk about your family sometimes. None of us have perfect families, and sometimes there's things that you don't want in a book. But I'm so thankful to families for trusting us with their stories, and I hope that you feel that we've done them justice. So I'm just going to talk kind of about what the book actually contains and kind of go through it a little bit with you. But I'll leave a lot for you to read for yourself when you purchase a copy. So the book, when Joe first hired me, he had been collecting stories of German families in Samoa for years. And he had a folder that he gave to me, and it had a list of people. So his list was about 160 people that he knew personally. And he said, these are the German families we want to start with. And then he said, go find everyone else. So my job was to find and document every other German name and family that we could possibly find from this time period. We have ended up with almost 800 life stories in the book, starting from less than 200. So we came a long way. I'm very proud of the fact that there are 132 women's histories in this book. So German women who came with their husbands, or single German women who came and worked as nurses or as missionaries and other things in the islands. And we also have 136 photos and images in the book. Now, unlike other books that have been published, this is not a photographic history, but I hope that you'll enjoy seeing the photos as you go through and looking into these people's eyes. As I worked with them, I felt like I got to know them. And it's fun to meet people now because I feel like I know your great-great-grandfather, and it's nice to meet you. So, I've got it. Thank you. Okay, so the book is organized in 3 parts. Kind of, the beginning of the book is going to list all of the sources that we've used. We were very, very careful to document every single source that we have. The last thing that we want to do is make claims about anyone, any person, and not be able to back it up in some way. So all of the sources are listed, and I'll talk about a little bit more about what those are on the next slide. But then we have, the introduction of the book is the historical context. So that's going through and contextualizing all of the history that you're going to find in the individual stories later on in the book. And then, of course, we have the life stories, and there's over 200 pages. Originally, when I finished the manuscript, I think it was almost 600 pages, wasn't it? So Katrina and the design team did a fantastic job, as Violet said, reformatting everything and making it much more manageable to read for everyone. So let's talk a little bit about the sources. I just want you to know where this information is coming from. We tried, of course, to find as many primary sources as we could. So this was a lot of time, like as Nicole mentioned, Honorable Ambassador, and thank you for being here. Spending time in archives, reading through a lot of old newspapers, a lot of old births, deaths, and marriage records at the archive in Apia, and any personal histories that we could find. So this would be records that were actually left by the individuals themselves that give us some information about their lives. We used national libraries here in New Zealand, in Auckland and Wellington, and then also the National Library of Australia in Canberra, and then many, many digital resources as well. Secondary sources are other published histories by other historians, other researchers, and other information that's out there. And then, of course, we did many, many interviews with family members and descendants. So there are some published family histories that we draw information from. These are all cited in the book, and you'll be able to find in every instance when you read about your ancestor, there's the sources listed there of where that information comes from. I will say at the beginning, this is not a perfect work. And so as this book is published, our hope is that the families will take this information, and if you have different information or more information, that you will contribute that to your family for your family to learn and grow from here. Okay, let's talk about the history a little bit of Germans in Samoa. So the first Germans to arrive in Samoa were sort of like, seamen that washed up on the shores. They weren't coming in any kind of organized fashion until the mid-19th century. And the way that happened was a man named August Unshelm, who first arrived in Samoa in 1855 as a representative of a company called J.C. Godeffroy and Son. Some of you will recognize that name. There was a trading company that worked all over the world, and in the mid-19th century, they wanted to expand their operations into the South Pacific. So they sent August Unshelm, who was based in Chile at the time, to the Pacific to find somewhere where they could establish a headquarters. So he arrives in the Pacific in 1855 and established their headquarters in 1857. The German colony was founded in 1900, and then this is just an overview of what we're going to discuss in the next few slides. So when we talk about German colonization, I want to be clear about something, and I've mentioned this and I mentioned it earlier as well. We're not here today, and this book in no way is meant to celebrate colonial history or colonialism in general. We're here to celebrate the people, and most especially the descendants, all of you, the family members around the world who've contributed so much to the world. But when we do talk about this, it happened, right? Samoa was a German colony for a period, and that's why we have this history. But Germany, in comparison to other European nations, wasn't a very good colonizer. They didn't end up having very many colonies at all, and part of the reason for that was that they were not a unified nation until late in the 19th century. So you see here two maps comparing what Europe actually looked like, and it wasn't until after 1878 that Germany had any kind of organized overseas presence starting. Now, as I mentioned, August Unshelm was an employee of this man named Johann Caesar Godeffroy VI. He was known as the King of the South Seas, although he actually never personally set foot in the South Pacific. But he had this trading company, again, working all over the world, and they made a huge impact in the South Pacific. He sent August Unshelm, they formed the headquarters in Apia, and then after August Unshelm, he passed away in a storm. He drowned, I can't remember the year, 1863, I think. And then Theodore Weber became the leader of Godeffroy in the South Pacific. He also became the first German consul in Apia, in Samoa. So this is the German consular office in Apia, and so from that time on, Germany had an established political or governmental presence in the islands. Now, let me actually go back. Once, I'll just talk about kind of transition into the colony. So once the Germans began working in the South Pacific, of course they had their trading companies and more came. J.C. Godeffroy and Son actually went bankrupt in the 1880s due to some badly timed investments and some economic challenges that were happening in Germany at the time. And they came back, they reinvented themselves as a company called the Deutsche Handels- und Plantagengesellschaft. So DHPG is how it's known in all the history, and you may be familiar with that. But the DHPG brought a lot of workers of all nationalities to the islands. And there were other trading firms that came in, and the book has an exhaustive list of those that were working in Samoa. But the point is that there started to be a lot more Germans coming in, and as they came in and they had these businesses, they of course wanted their business interests to be protected. Samoa was going through a time of civil war for many, many years in the late 19th century. And sometimes German businesses or other nationality businesses were casualties of this conflict. So you can imagine the European population, in their own self-interest, wanted to protect their assets, and they started to petition their government for greater protection. So that started a contest between three powers: Germany, the United States, and Great Britain. Finally, in 1899, after many years of discussion and some changes politically in Apia, different ways that they tried to manage things, in 1899, there was a convention held, I believe in Berlin, called the Tripartite Convention, and at that time, Samoa was divided. So Tutuila was given to the United States as a coaling station. So that's where American Samoa came from, which still stands today. And then what became later on known as Western Samoa, the islands of Upolu and Savaii, were given to Germany. And then Great Britain kind of withdrew their interest for compensation elsewhere in the Pacific, including Tonga. Excuse me. So if you've been to Apia and you've driven down Beach Road towards Songi, I think it is, you've passed this monument at Mulino'u, and it still stands today. This is a monument to the German flag being hoisted on the 1st of March, 1900, commemorating the establishment of the German colony of Samoa. The first governor of German Samoa was named Wilhelm Solf, and he was an employee of the Foreign Office in Germany. He had a great love for the Samoan people. Again, I'm not really here to celebrate him. He's kind of a contested figure in history. There's lots of things he did in the interest of Germans, but if you asked him as a person, I think that he would tell you that he also tried to protect and to care for the Samoans as best as he knew how in his mind. Once the colony was established, you can imagine that started to open the door for many more Germans to come. So now we're not just talking about traders and plantation managers and farmers, we're talking about everyday kind of people, postmen, meteorologists, surveyors, landscape, architecture, all these kinds of things. And so when you look at the book, all of these stories, these people have different stories and different kinds of jobs that they came and things that brought them to the islands. So again, not just the trade and plantation companies, but you also had employees for the colonial government, people who ran private businesses, shops, dressmaking, those kinds of things, and then people who were doing scientific studies. We're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but it's incredible how much scientific development actually came out of Samoa and out of the German colonial time. Thank you, Bella. Thank you. Here's a photo that I love here that I just wanted to display of some of the workers that were here that were there in Apia working for the DHPG. And here in the middle, you have this handsome man. This is Joe Kyle's grandfather, Hans Kyle, the first German Kyle that was in Samoa. Once the Germans started coming, of course, infrastructure, right, started to happen. There were more roads that were built, more bridges. Railroad was started. Different technological advancements started to happen in the islands. The government hospital was built in 1905 and stood for many, many years as a treatment center for medical conditions in the islands. You also had people coming as school teachers. Schools had been operating in the islands since the time that, of course, the Europeans had first started there, but about the 1880s, they were all run by churches. So like the Catholic school, Marist Brothers, those kinds of things. And after the establishment of the colony, there began to be an organized German school presence. So you had teachers and other people coming to work in the schools. Now, I want to mention one thing in the history in particular that affects the lives of those that you're going to read about in the book. Governor Zolf, as I said, he's kind of a contested figure in this history. I think that, again, if you asked him, he would see himself in a favorable light. But one of the things that he did that really impacted people's lives was he, in, I believe, 1912, off the top of my head, he passed a law called the anti-miscegenation law. Miscegenation is racial mixing, so he passed a law banning mixed marriages between Samoans and Europeans. His reasoning for doing this was to try to uncomplicate what was happening with families in Apia, because with the Germans moving in, all of a sudden you had this new race that had never existed before of the Afakasi class, the Afakasi race, the people that were part German or part European, part some, Western nationality, and then part Samoan. A wonderful race of people that was seen to be, to have all of the enterprising attitudes of their Western family members, but to also have the ability to succeed in the islands from their Samoan side. So this became a group of such major importance in Apia that the colonial leaders felt that they needed a way to I don't want to say manage, that they needed a way to classify. And so, so Governor Solf passed this law that if your parents were legally married, if a Afakasi descended from a legalized union, meaning that a European-style marriage, that they could receive European, they would be seen as having European parentage, and they could be seen as European. If they were seen as European, this was an important thing, because if they were, then they had access to things like passports to travel overseas, and the opportunity to go to the European school, where the education was a little bit better, different, than what was offered at the Samoan school. And so this was a very important thing that happened in the colony, because it started to direct people's paths one way or the other. And you'll see in the history, the families of those who descended from marriages fa Samoa that were not legally recognized by the colonial government, they ended up having very different lives and different experiences than those who descended differently. Okay, now the German colony in Samoa was really rather short-lived. And the reason for that, of course, is the start of World War I. So once World War I began, Germany knew they didn't have a good chance of staying autonomous there in Samoa. Being so close to New Zealand and with all the things happening in the world, they didn't have any military or anything. And so when the New Zealand government, there was a New Zealand expeditionary force led by a man named Colonel Robert Logan, who's a sheep farmer from Otago. They arrived in Samoa on the 29th of August, 1914, to take over the colony. And of course, the reason for that was that the Allied powers did not want Germany to have a foothold in the Pacific in any way. So it was a bloodless takeover. The governor at that time, Governor Solf, had moved on to other postings elsewhere in the world, and the governor at that time was Dr. Eric Schultz. He was taken into custody along with other colonial leaders and other leaders of businesses in the colony, and then the official takeover occurred on the 30th of August, 1914. From there, it was a difficult time for the Germans who lived in Samoa. Many of the Germans who lived in Samoa up to that point had been there for decades and had their families there and their lives and their businesses and their livelihood. At the time of takeover, those who were seen as any kind of threat to the New Zealand government or to the administration at that time were brought to New Zealand and put in internment camps. And many of them were in the camps from that time, from 1914 until 1919. In 1919, many of them, if they didn't have familial ties in the islands or they couldn't prove a really strong connection to the islands, they were repatriated to Germany directly from New Zealand. So there were about 400 of these, mostly men, that were repatriated from internment camps here in New Zealand directly to Germany in 1919. Not all of them had come from Samoa. Some had also come from Tonga or other islands in the Pacific, but they were all repatriated then. Those who could prove a strong tie until the beginning of 1920, and then they were sent back to Samoa. But then in May 1920, the New Zealand government in Samoa went through all the Germans and they classified them. If you were Class A, that meant that you weren't married to a Samoan, you didn't have family in the islands, and so you didn't belong there. And so those were identified for repatriation to Germany. If you did have family in the islands, if you were married to, for instance, a local woman, or you had your children there, a lot of times those ones were classified as Class B, and they were allowed to remain. So in May 1920, the Mine, which was an ocean liner that had been taken over by the Allies during the war, took more than 200 German-Samoan people, well, Germans from Samoa, and repatriated them directly to Germany. Now, there were some left in the islands, as I said, those who were married to local women, for instance, Hans Kyle, and maybe others of your family members. But a lot of the families at that time as well were split. So they maybe was a German man who had a Fa Samoa marriage and had children in the islands, but because his marriage was not legally recognized by the German government, or by the New Zealand government, he was sent back. So you'll see that, and I'll share some stories where you see that division happen in the family. So now, in our present time, there's families where you have descendants in Samoa and descendants that grew up in Germany from the same father, the same family. Okay, now it's story time. I want to share with you some of the stories in this book. And I have to be honest that there's almost 800, right? It was very difficult to choose which ones to share. So I hope you'll forgive me if I don't talk about your particular ancestor. I hope you'll still enjoy reading about them in the book. But I wanted to share some stories that I thought might be of interest to some of you. Starting with some of the more well-known families, or maybe some of the families that are, participated a lot with this book. I'm also going to talk about some of the major contributions that were made to the world by Germans in Samoa. Some of them might surprise you. And then I'm just going to share some of the interesting stories that you'll find, because there's a lot of those. It was quite entertaining a lot of times to be in the archive and find things to write about. Okay, the first one I want to start with, of course, is Hans Joachim Keil the First. So he was born in Magdeburg, Prussia in 1864, and he was raised in Bellenstedt. After his father's retirement, he was raised in Bellenstedt. When he was young, about 13 years old, he was taken by his father to the United States. Apparently, he was supposed to be left there to grow up there, but he, I guess, was kind of a hooligan, and he got sent back to Germany. So he finished his high school in Germany. He became a captain in the German cavalry. And then he got married in, before 1893, he married a woman named Elise Reneke Hense. She was a widow. They got married, and then they came to Samoa by 1903. They arrived on the 5th of May, 1903 together. They were not able to have children, and his wife actually passed away soon after they arrived. He was working as an overseer for the DHPG. So there you see that history, why it's important working for that company. When his wife passed away, he remarried a woman named Daisy Amu. So you may recognize that name. She was a Chinese Samoan, right, woman. And they ended up having 9 children. I've got the list here, but thank you, Violet. 9 children. 9 children together. Now, Captain Keil was a very well-known and well-liked man in Samoa. He was infamous for his drinking habits, and he had a jovial personality and a striking character. He worked on plantations. After the takeover of Samoa by the New Zealand authorities, he was actually allowed to remain in the islands, but he lost all of his business interests and lost his job because of the dissolution of the DHPG. But he was able to stay in the islands after the repatriation of many of the Germans. During the Second World War, his sons were, 2 of his sons, because of their German citizenship, because of him, they were actually interned during the Second World War as well. But once, I want to highlight him and focus on him because, again, we're here to celebrate the stories and the families. And so many of the Keils have done so much for Samoa and for the world, and I just want to recognize a few of them. His son, named after him, Hans Joachim Jr., became a successful Apia businessman and was a member of parliament for Western Samoa for 12 years. His son, Wilhelm, who is Joe's father, and Mani and Kiso, and Tui, was a local business magnate. He served as the first honorary German consul in Samoa and was a member of the directing boards of many large ventures in Samoa, including the Central Bank, Western Samoa Trust Estates Company, Westec, Polynesian Airlines, and the Bank of Western Samoa. And then, last but not least, his grandson, Joe, whom we all know and love, who was a pioneer Samoan pilot, served in the U.S. Air Force, and he was a member of parliament for over 20 years, including several terms as a cabinet minister, and he was a well-known businessman, a highly respected member of the community, and a supporter of the arts. And we're so grateful to him for his patronage for this book. Another name you might be familiar with is the Retzlaff family. Misa Telefoni Retzlaff is the grandson of Erich Telefoni Retzlaff. His name was Erich. He was born in Szczecin, Pomerania, which is now Szczecin, Poland, in 1878. And because he was the youngest son, as the story goes from the family history, he was not allowed to inherit any of the family land, so he had to find a different job. He got a job with the Postal Service in Berlin, and he was trained to install telephones, a new technology at that time. So he was sent overseas to China, to Germany had a small protectorate in China as well, and he installed telephone lines there. And then in, I believe, 1905, he boarded a boat and had a new assignment to go to the German colony in Samoa and string telephone lines there. Hence his nickname, Telefoni. So this is a neat story because Misa Retzlaff Telefoni is the former Deputy Prime Minister and the former Attorney General of Samoa, and he adopted his grandfather's nickname Telefoni, and he carries that to this day. Mr. Retzlaff here, he married a woman named Elizabeth Purcell. She was of German-Irish ancestry. He raised her daughter from her first marriage, Fuatino, and then they had two sons together, Herman Paul and Paul Herman. And I believe Misa's son is also H.P. Herman Paul. So Mr. Retzlaff worked for the government, of course, doing his telephone service. But once the New Zealand government came in, he lost his job, and he started a plantation at Puipa'a, which the family still has to this day, I believe. In about 1930, Mr. Retzlaff took his sons to Germany for education and left them with his sister in Germany. His eldest son returned to Samoa before the start of the Second World War, but his younger son was still in school, and so he stayed there. He ended up getting drafted into the German military in 1914, and he was sent to the Russian front and killed. I'm sorry, not 1914, 1941, wrong war. Notable descendants of Mr. Retzlaff in Samoa, who again have done incredible things for the country of Samoa, for the nation and for the people of Samoa, is his son, Herman Paul. He had a distinguished career as a farmer and businessman on the islands. He served on the boards of the Alafua Agricultural College and the Bank of New Zealand, and he started a business with his wife, H.J. Retzlaff Limited, and built the original Samoan Hideaway Hotel. His grandson, Herman Theodore Retzlaff, also known as Misa Telefoni, I mentioned he's an attorney general and spent 25 years in politics, including 10 years as deputy prime minister and 5 years as minister of finance. And then his grandson, Herman Paul, who was, at the time that this was written, serving as the attorney general of Samoa. His service made him and his father the first son and father to serve in that capacity. We have Stefan Clemens Wetzel. If you're familiar with Apia Concrete and the Wetzel family in Samoa, this is where they stem from. Stefan Clemens Wetzel was born in Rothenburg in 1871. He arrived in Samoa in the 1890s as an employee for the DHPG, and he lived in Mulifanua. Soon after he arrived, he married a woman named Gustava Nelson, which you may recognize the name. She was Swedish Samoan, and she was a sister to Olaf Frederick Nelson. They married and became the parents of 4 children in the islands. After about 1900, when the colony was established, Mr. Wetzel left his job with the DHPG, and he started his own plantation in Siusenga with about 300 acres of land there. So he settled with his family there, and he raised cocoa, which was one of the crops that the Germans had brought to Samoa to help to establish plantations there. Notable among his descendants are the late Tupua, Fred Wetzel, whom you may know, who was a well-known Apia businessman and a philanthropist and the founder of Apia Concrete. And then his son, Masoi Norman, who serves on the Samoa Historical and Cultural Trust, and we're grateful for his help in bringing the book to light. Okay, we have here Herman Friedrich Bernard Thompson. Now, the Thompson name, you may be aware, is Danish, and German. So they were from the very northern part of Germany that at times was part of Denmark and at times was part of Germany. There are some families in the book that come from that area, and there are some qualifications that we used as to whether or not we would include them. The Laban family is another one of them, but the Thompson family are there. So he was born in 1854, and he was the youngest of 3 sons. He he joined the German Merchant Navy as a young man, and he eventually became a ship captain. He arrived in Samoa in the 1870s, so quite early, as the captain of a barge called the Ararita. He sailed for the DHPG. He got a job with them, and he worked on their Danish ship, the Lemoig. Later, he also captained a ship called the Elsa. He was married to a Samoan woman named Faso from Apia. They lived in Alamangoto, and they had 2 children, Herman and George. He lived all of his life, the remainder of his life on the islands. In 1900, he was lost at sea, but his family remained in the islands. His son George later traveled to Germany and joined the German Navy in Kiel, and he served throughout the First World War. Later, he immigrated to Australia, so there are Thompson descendants in Australia as well as still in Samoa from the younger son. So prominent among his descendants in Samoa is Otto Nelson, who's a professional rugby player and captain of Samoa's rugby team, Mano Samoa. Kaiono Thompson Fuatanga, who is a Taekwondo Olympian. Sua Fritz Thompson, who was a rare judicial double. He was the first Samoan magistrate in Samoa and the former registrar of the High Court. And then Vui Clarence Nelson, whom some of you will know, he's a justice of the Supreme Court in Samoa, and he also served, he told me the other day that his service ended in February, but he served for 8 years on the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, based in Geneva. So he's made wonderful contributions to the world and to contributing to issues that protect children around the world. He is also now the chairman of the Samoa Historical and Cultural Trust. And again, we're very thankful to him and to his family for all that they've done to contribute to this book. Now, after the founding of the colony, as you had these other people moving in, one of the people that came was Friedrich Oscar Heinrich Stimsner, so Fritz Stimsner. He was an architect, and he helped to build many of the colonial buildings that you saw for many years in Apia. He also built many of the private homes that you saw there. He was born in 1873, and he had an uncle that was actually in the islands named Captain Hoofnagel. Many of you may be familiar with that name. Captain Hoofnagel was the manager of DHPG's Vailele plantation, which was a very large plantation. So he wrote to Germany and asked his sister, or invited his sister to send her son to Samoa to, be with him and help him and learn working on the plantation. So Mr. Stimsner arrived in Apia in 1898. Once he got there, he married Mary Ellen Beetham, who was a woman of English, Samoan, and Portuguese heritage from Luatuanu. Forgive me if I say these names wrong. They eventually became the parents of 9 children in Samoa. So Mr. Stimsner made a lot of contributions, as I said, to the German colonial time, building all of these buildings. He also had a very interesting history once it came to the wars. He was interned during the war, and then after the end of the war, he and his whole family were repatriated to Germany together. However, due to his wife's part Samoan heritage, they were actually allowed to return to the islands after. So they came back, they lived in Samoa the remainder of their lives. Their sons were still had to be interned during the Second World War. One of them was not allowed to come back to Samoa, as far as I understand. But today, Stimsner descendants still live in the islands and run some businesses and have great impact there in Samoa today. Okay, as we were leaving Samoa yesterday, I was interested that the agent who checked our passport had this last name, and I said, "Oh, you're a Yanker," and he said, "It said Yankee." So I guess it's changed over time, but but it comes from this man, Fritz Janke, Fritz Martin Janke. He was born in Pomerania in 1885. He arrived in Samoa in 1907, working for the DHPG. He married a woman named Teresia Tupo Ma'u, who was from Mulifanua. They had 4 children. He was not among those interned in New Zealand, and he was allowed to remain on the islands because of his marriage. So you may be familiar with the Yanka plantation, which if you're driving from Apia to Faleolo airport, as we were yesterday, there was a very large plantation that he had there with another German named Emil Meiritz. They had a large cocoa plantation, and Mr. Janke ran that for many, many years. Notable among his descendants in Samoa is his grandson Fritz, who served as a member of parliament in Samoa in the 1980s. Okay, I want to also mention the Schmitz. Now, I was telling Kiso yesterday, Germans have a lot of S's in the language. SCH everywhere, of course, all the family names. And when I was working on the S's for the book, it took a long time to get through them, especially the Schmitz. There were a lot of Schmitz in Samoa. So this is just one of the families. And I will mention in the book, I think so far this is the first man that I mentioned who lived in Savaii, but there were Germans in Savaii as well. So Albert Schmidt, and you may recognize this beautiful church from I think it's Safotu. Yes? Safotu, thank you. So the family helped to build this church. Albert Schmidt was born in 1848 in Hamburg. He arrived in Samoa by the early 1870s, again, quite early, and settled in Savaii, working as a plantation manager at Waipouli. Later, he was employed by one of the trading companies, not the DHPG, but Rouge Hiedeman & Co. as a trader at Salailua. After he arrived in the islands, he married an American Samoan woman from Safotu named Sarah Clara Smith. A Smith married a Schmidt, imagine that. And they had 4 children. So I want to mention them specifically because they have an incredible legacy that has lasted on the islands. Their oldest son, Louis, lived in Safotu and had at least 5 children with his Walasian wife. He was a trader. He worked at one point for the DHPG in Safune, and then he also managed his own large plantation and grew cocoa and copra. Albert's son, Bismarck, married a Samoan woman from Falealupo. They had 4 children. He was a trader and a planter as well in Falealupo and Whangamalo. Albert's son, Fred, was also a trader, but he largely stayed in Safotu. He married twice and had a large family. They were devout Catholics, and they supported the growth of the Catholic Church, including assisting with building this beautiful Catholic church that still stands in Safotu today. If you go to Savaii and you visit this village, which I recommend because it's beautiful, if you go into this church, you will see plaques of their family on the wall, and it's a lovely, lovely tribute to them and to all that they've done in the islands. Their youngest daughter, Albert's youngest daughter, was known as Ellen or Elena. She married an American-German man named Alfred Max Phillip, and they had 2 sons. They actually spent a couple of years living in Texas before they eventually returned to Samoa. There are quite a few connections with Texas, which is interesting to me now that I live in Texas. Descendants of Mr. Schmidt have been active and excelled in many areas in sports, politics, government, and business in Samoa and abroad. Notable among them are Leva Leo Schmidt, who was a commissioner of police in Samoa in the 1960s and a member of parliament in the 1970s. Palatailao Fossi Schmidt, who was a member of parliament in the 70s and 80s and also served as a cabinet minister. And Anna Schmidt, who was Miss Samoa in 1977. She represented her country in the Miss World pageant in London. She's still beautiful. Okay, now I want to I mentioned that there are some major contributions that were made to the world by Germans who lived in Samoa, and some of them, as I said, might surprise you. This man here is Otto Tettens, who is a German man from, let me just refresh, He was from Rendsburg in Schleswig-Holstein. He was the son of a police officer, and he studied natural science in Tübingen, Munich, Berlin, and Kiel, and before earning his doctoral degree in 1891. Thereafter, he worked as an astronomer at the German Hydrographic Office in Hamburg and the Observatory of Strasbourg. In 1902, he was hired by the Royal Society of Science in Göttingen to work on a climate project in Samoa. So he arrived in the islands in June of 1902, and he established the Apia Conservatory at Mulinu'u. If you go to Mulinu'u, you will still see where the observatory is today, and the reason that Mr. Tettens is so important, Dr. Tettens is so important, his contributions, is that to this day, what he started is the longest running collection of meteorological data in the South Pacific. And so that stands to this day, and we have him to thank for all of the information that has come from that work. Here's another one whose name you might recognize. I mentioned this in the presentation in Apia, but in Apia, I guess on Thursday morning, not in Apia, but near Doma, there was an earthquake, which I did not feel because I was sleeping at 5 a.m. But we can measure earthquakes because of this man, Ludwig Karl Geiger. Geiger, he invented the Geiger calculator, which measures seismic activity. He lived in Samoa. He lived there for many years. And interestingly, he actually had a relationship in Samoa with a woman that resulted in the birth of a daughter. When Mr. Geiger, he was repatriated to Germany. So when he left his daughter in Samoa, and she's grown up there, and then she has a daughter now. But he went back to Germany, and I think later he lived in Switzerland, continuing to work in his research and the things that he did. I was told this story, which is just a heart, you can feel the love and also the tragedy and sadness in this story, that on his deathbed, he had 2 sons in Germany, and on his deathbed, he told his sons, by the way, you have a sister in Samoa. And so they were able to make connections with the family, and now the family is connected. But they're one of those families that I mentioned that now they have lines in both places, and they're not the only ones. But again, an amazing contribution to the world that came because of his work in Samoa. I mentioned Governor Solf, and I want to mention him again as a person, not just as the governor, but he was a very interesting person. Again, he worked for the German Colonial Office. He was born in 1963, and he always had an interest in work overseas. He actually attended school at the newly established School for Oriental Languages in Germany in 1885, and then he joined the German Foreign Service in 1888. He started his work in India, and then he was moved by the German government to all these different places, and he spent about almost 20 years, I think, in Samoa, 15 or 20 years. A very long time, and he had a great love for Samoans. In fact, he gave his daughter, his daughter was born in Samoa in 1909, and her name is So'oa e Malelangi, who was known as Langi. That's how connected he felt to the islands. Well, I want to talk about Governor Zolf after he left the islands, because his contribution to the world is important, not just for what he did in Samoa, but later on, he actually became the German foreign leader, a diplomat in Japan, and he helped to end the First World War. Am I giving you correct information? I think the First World War with a treaty of friendship with Japan. So very important work. Not only that, but he was an opponent of National Socialism, and he was concerned once he came back to Germany with what was happening with the Nazis and what they were doing in the government. He and his wife, who I also want to especially pay tribute to here, Johanna, she went by Hannah, Dottie Zolf. She was much younger than her husband. They married when he was already well into his consular career, and then she came with him to Samoa, and she lived there for many years. She, of course, traveled with him for the rest of his career, and as I said, once they got back to Germany after his retirement, they were both very concerned about what was happening in the government. After her husband's death, Johanna and her daughter Langi formed a resistance group that met in their home. They were actually arrested during World War II for their work, and they were put in a concentration camp. They did not perish. They were, I think, just days away from their appointed deaths when the war ended, and they actually were able to get out, and they testified in the Nuremberg trials about what had happened to them and what had happened during the Second World War with the Nazis. So very, very important work. Since her death, Mrs. Solf, Hannah, has been recognized by many, recognized and celebrated by many people. Among the honors that she has received posthumously, a street was renamed after her in her hometown of Neuenhagen. So a wonderful woman, wonderful work that she's done in the world. I also want to mention Dr. Schultz Aworth. I mentioned him before. He was the second governor of the German colony in Samoa. He was born in 1870 and again had an interest in overseas work, so he spent most of his time overseas. He worked as a clerk in various courts and then passed a bar exam and was appointed as a Prussian probational judge in 1897. And then he earned his Juris Doctorate. He then really wanted to have a consular career, and so he started working for the Department of Colonial Affairs in Berlin. His first assignment was to Africa, and then he arrived in Samoa in 1901 to provisionally serve as the acting imperial counselor and judge in the place of another man who was working there but who was overseas for family reasons. So he remained in Samoa until he was taken into custody by the New Zealand government in 1914. He learned the Samoan language, he spoke it fluently, he wrote several books about Samoan language and grammar. He had a full body tattoo, a pea. That's how connected he felt to being Samoan. He also had an adopted Samoan son who was given to him to raise and who traveled faithfully with him for many, many years, even going back to Germany with him and spending time in internment with him when Governor Solf was interned for 4 years during the First World War. Once he was back in Germany, Dr. Schultz married, and he had 3 children. He gave them all Samoan names. So you had Iono Carl, Fuatino Maria, and Tuala Joachim. He lived in Germany the rest of his life, but he passed away in Berlin in 1935. While his descendants still reside in Germany, many of them have visited Samoa and continue to feel very connected to the islands through the work of their grandfather. Okay, this is kind of a human interest story, and I wanted to mention a few of these because as you read the book, if you read it cover to cover, which you don't have to, but if you do that, what you'll see is what I saw, which is that humans are just humans, and stories are stories. We all have the same story. We all have troubles, we all have challenges, and we all are just doing our best. I think this is illustrated really well by a very sad story of the Surin family. Now, Gerd Surin arrived in Samoa. Let me just make sure I have my notes correct. He was born in 1880 in Prussia, in Blauhand, and he came to Samoa with his younger brother, Reinhard. He came sort of late in the colony. He came in 1912, and him and his brother worked together and had a plantation, and then he had his own work there as well. He went back to Germany in 1913 and got married to a woman named Ernestina Ludovica, and then they came back to the islands together, and they had a son there in 1914, May 1914. So you can kind of start to see the timeline of when these things are happening in their lives. Well, with everything that started to happen politically, they kind of saw the writing on the wall, and they decided that they'd better leave Samoa and go back to Germany to make sure that they were safe. So on the 1st of August 1914, they took their baby and they left Samoa. Their baby was only 6 months or so at the time, 5 months. They landed back in Langenschwalbach and lived with his in-laws, with his wife's parents for a while. After the start of the First World War, he was enlisted in the military. He fought on the Russian front as a captain of the reserves, with the Leipzig Lancers. And then he and his wife, he survived the war, and when he came back, he and his wife had another daughter. They had a son in there too, so they had 3 children. Okay, due to his service in the war, he was highly decorated by the German military. But when the Second World War began, again, he was not a fan of National Socialism and was concerned about what was happening in the country. His 2 sons joined the German military during World War II, and they were both, I believe, they were submarine commanders during the war. He and his wife and his daughter were forced to move from their home during the war, and so they ended up in Sudetenland, which was formerly a part of Czechoslovakia, and it was one of the most pro-Nazi regions in the nation. After the liberation of Czechoslovakia in May 1945, the family was unable to escape. There were a lot of terrible things that were happening at that time, and Mr. Zurin was very concerned for the safety of his family. So, as a measure to protect them, he actually took their lives and his so that they wouldn't have to endure anything more during the war. Now, that's not a nice story, but I share it as an illustration of the very human people that we're talking about in this book. Real people and real life stories. By the way, his sons survived the war. There are still Zurin descendants in Samoa through his brother who remained in the islands that whole time. I want to highlight this special woman here as well, Carolina Clara Brunn. She was born in 1875 in Lübeck, and she arrived in Samoa in 1906 via San Antonio, Texas, where her brother lived. She came and she was married to a man in Samoa named Carl Hansen. And Carl Hansen was the last manager of the DHPG in the South Pacific. He was a very important man, a very good man. He helped a lot of people during the takeover. Mrs. Hansen, Caroline, was very well known and very involved in the community herself. She took it upon herself to form organizations and to just do everything that she could to help build up the colony, build up the community, and to help the other families that were there. She was a supporter of the balls and bazaars that happened in the community. And she served as the chairwoman for the German Colonial Women's Organization and the Women's Club of the Samoan branch of the Red Cross. So she was in Samoa until 1916. Her husband was one of those that was taken for internment in 1914, leaving her with their children in Samoa with no way to care for themselves or take care of their family. So she was there for 2 years until she finally got permission to leave, and she ended up going to the States, living with her brother in Texas, and then going to Germany. All the while, simply hoping that she would be able to be reunited with her husband after the war, which they were. But you can imagine just that situation, the uncertainty and the challenges that she had to face as a single mother and a woman at that time. Another interesting character that you'll find in the book is Bernard Funk, Dr. Funk. He arrived in Samoa quite early as well. He was born in 1844 in Mecklenburg. He joined the Hamburg American Steamship Company as a medical officer, and then as he traveled with the steamship company, he was hired in 1879 by the DHPG to be a medical officer for them on the islands. So Dr. Funk is important because he was one of the first medical doctors to live in the islands, and he contributed a lot to life there for many, many years, not only providing medical services, but he also had a passion for an area high above Apia called Lake Lanato'o, and he planted the goldfish that you find in the lake. So if you go up there today and you see any fish in the lake, you can thank Dr. Funk. I can't remember the story of how this came about, but there's also a cocktail named after him, the Dr. Funk. I don't know if anyone has had that, but it's named after him. There are many more interesting stories. There's a story of a man named Otto Treviranus, and you have to, I hope you can appreciate what it was like for me to not know these people, but then to get to know them as we piece together stories of their lives. This man, Otto, always stood out to me He was born in 1883 in North Rhine-Westphalia, and he came to the islands in 1908 to work a copra plantation in a village called Lesea. He was there, he established his business, he was an entrepreneur, he wanted to work there, but something tragic happened. In 1914, in February, there were these 4 fita, so Samoan soldiers, Samoan policemen. I can't remember all of the details, but it was in the newspaper and it's in the sources here. But they had gotten drunk, I think, that night, and they had broken into some businesses in downtown Apia, and they were on the run from the military authorities. And they ran to this man, they ran through his plantation, and he was actually shot and killed in the struggle that happened. And so again, one of those very human stories that you just really feel for this man and for what happened. Later on, his nephew, I believe it was his nephew, came to Samoa to take over his plantation. And he ended up staying in Samoa, getting married there to a woman named Koki Tialino, and they had one son in Apia. After his wife's death in 1918 in the influenza, then Mr. Treviranus gave his son to his Samoan in-laws, and he left the country because he wasn't able to care for him. So his son still lived there for quite a while until he was later, I think he ended up moving from the islands later on. So again, just another one of those very personal stories that you'll find. Some people in the islands, and I also wanted to highlight this, not everyone in the book has a detailed story. Some of the people that came to the islands came there and didn't live very long. So some of them soldiers that came and, for instance, died in the hurricane in the 1880s that destroyed a couple of German ships. That's in the book as well. But I also was interested in the story of, sorry, I'm jumping down to the bottom here, but Reverend Brother Edward, or the middle one here. I never found a first name for this man, but this is what I learned about him, was that he was born in 1890 in Bavaria, and he completed his early education in Germany, and then he was admitted to the novitiate of the Marist brothers in Belgium in 1904. He passed a teacher's examination in 1910, and then he was sent to Samoa as a teacher. Well, tragically, 2 weeks after his arrival, on the 30th of December 1910, he went swimming with 2 of his colleagues from the Marist Brothers School at the Papaloloa waterfall. He got too close to the falls, and he was sucked into them by the current. He hit his head on a sharp rock and passed away and was buried at Momoa the following day. I share his story because he didn't have any descendants, and I don't know anything really about his family in Germany, but again, a very real story, a very real person that lived and died and made Samoa their final resting place. Another one of those is the one on the bottom here, Otto Müller. He was born in Thuringia in 1888 and was a German sailor. He arrived in Samoa in 1910 aboard the Condor working as a boilerman. Again, swimming was dangerous. On July 16th of that year, he went swimming with some shipmates in a place called Hamilton's Hole, which was a local bathing spot, and he suddenly sank while he was in the water. He drowned, and he was given a military funeral and buried at the Tufuiopa Cemetery there in Samoa. And finally, this one up here, Rudolf Knuth. I just found this story really interesting, and I wonder what kind of man he was. He was born in Germany, and he was a German sea captain. From 1884 on, he worked for the DHPG, and that brought him to Samoa in 1889. He was apparently married and had several children, but I don't have all of the details of his family. But what was interesting to me is his death notice in the newspaper, and I wanted to tell you about this. He passed away on the 28th of August in 1894. Just before his death, a couple of days before his death, he told all of his friends that he had a feeling that he was going to die. And all of his friends, told him, no, that's not going to happen. You're fine, you're healthy. But he prepared his will and all of his personal effects. He got everything in order, which was quite a funny joke to a lot of his friends. But imagine their surprise when he did pass away not long after, and the community held a a funeral for him and expressed in the newspaper their genuine shock and regret that they hadn't listened when he told them that he had this feeling. All right. I hope you've enjoyed hearing some of the stories of the people and the families that are in this book. You will find many, many more. I hope that as you take the time to look for your family members and for families of your friends and to just read, that you'll get a feeling for how real these people were and the contributions that they made. Again, we're not here to celebrate necessarily what happened in the history, but to celebrate the people, their ingenuity, their adventurous spirit, all that they did and all that they contributed to modern Samoa and to each of our lives to make them so rich. I love this quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said that there's properly no history, only biography. And what that means to me is that, like the quote that Violet shared earlier, there's really nothing about our lives that doesn't come down to our stories. History is shaped by individuals and the choices that they make and the things that they do. And so I hope that each of us, as contributors to history, as individuals, will make those choices that our family members can be proud of and to make those contributions to make the world a better place. Joe is a great example of that. He's left this legacy for all of us, and I want to point out that he did not do this for himself. Unfortunately, he passed away before he ever got to read anything about the book. I got teary last time I talked about this too. He would call me all the time. As Violet said, something that would take him 5 months has taken us so long. The book would never have been finished in 5 months, unless we had, 100 of us working on it. But Joe, as soon as he told me about it, weeks later, I'm getting calls. Is it done? Can you send me something? And I'm like, Joe, there's so much still to do. But it was such a pleasure for me to work on his book, to get to know him a little bit before he passed away, and now to get to know his family. It's been such a privilege and a pleasure for me to get to know these people, your family members, these people through the book, through their stories. Again, I thank you for sharing those stories with me and for being willing to include your family. I hope that you find value in this book. I hope that you'll forgive us for any errors that you find. And I encourage you to read through it and to really enjoy the stories that are in there. And again, leave your own legacy. Think about what you are leaving for the world and what people would write about you. And make it a point to live a good story and to leave a good legacy. Veel vergenoegen beim lezen. I hope you enjoy reading the book. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Keisha. We have just gotten to know and love her through these 5 years as she's had to deal with us instead of just my dad. But we really appreciate it. Thank you. That was beautiful. I haven't heard all these stories, and I'm looking forward to reading it. We did read through it quickly to edit it, but now I'm going to read through it again to actually get to know the people that came before us. And I'm going to second what Keisha said. In a time where we're always on devices and we're watching a lot of things on our internet, we kind of forget that even our parents have stories, and they have stories of our grandparents that we should pass on so that these important people that laid the path ahead of us get remembered. So thank you for sharing that, Keisha. The rest of and I wanted to say that my dad would have been so proud of this book. He would have just been tickled to see everybody here and how the book turned out. And I hope you enjoy it as he hoped you would. So we're going to have a closing prayer, and I just wanted to let you know that on the right-hand side here, we have actually run out of hardcover books, but if you pre-ordered, we have the hardcovers that you pre-ordered over here. And right now, this is the book, and it's absolutely beautiful. It has colored pictures in it that you've shared with us, and you can purchase this over on this side, and it's 100 New Zealand dollars. Also, Kim, Kyle, and Mommy Kyle have set this whole thing up, and they had an army of people here to help them today, and we want to thank them for setting this whole up. We have refreshments on the left-hand side. It takes a village to get anything done. And growing up, it was so interesting because if you do anything Good. The first thing they ask, what's your name? What's your last name? Or if you do something bad, they're even more interested in you and your last name. So it's, you know, he said that make sure you have a good story to tell, or an interesting one at least, right? And so we'd like to invite Max Purcell. I'm so sorry. Yes, Max Purcell to come up and say a closing prayer. We will have refreshments on the left-hand side, and before that, we'll have a Siva Samoa by family and friends as well.
Talofa, I'll break with protocol a little and explain to you how I ended up in this circumstance. My name is Max Purcell. My Purcell family was mentioned here, but I'm German through my Wen family. I live in a small town of Laie on the north shore of the island of Oahu in Hawaii. And Mangi Kyle, who's one of Joe's younger brothers, lives there. He treated me to a great lunch one day, and in that moment of weakness, he asked me if I could give the closing prayer. And of course, you don't bite the hand that feeds you, so I said yes. At the ending of the meal, he said I have to give it in Samoan. And I came to what E.T. would call full stop. But it was too late to back out, so bear with me. I've lived out of Samoa for 50 years, and my Samoan is a little spotty. But being part German and English, I will give an afakasi prayer. Lo mātou tamai o le langi, e avea o masui o i mātou, e momoli e tuai, sa mātou whawhitai mai whamanu. Ono lau tau singa, malau puipuinga, o mawhai e mātou na whaatau nuina le nei whamoe moe, i le saunga le mū. As thou knowest, we have traveled from places near and distant to be able to witness and celebrate the launching of this wonderful book outside of Samoa. And we thank you, Father, that we have been able to do this. It is written in the spirit of Elijah, and as the prophet Malachi said, it helps turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to the fathers. And we pray that this will become an encouragement to many of us and to others who are not here to seek out the genealogies of our families. It is easier for us to face the future and go into the future when we know where we came from. We also gather here and celebrate and are reminded of Joe and his life. For this was his vision and his dream, to write a book to honor those of our ancestors who travel far from earth and home to the distant islands of Samoa, these islands that we love very much, and for the contributions they and their descendants made to the building of our nation. And not only our nation, but the other nations and countries they have migrated to. We're grateful for Keisha, for her talents and her skills and the research that she put into this book, and to help fulfill Joe's dream. We are also very grateful to have with us here in attendance the ambassador from Germany, Nicole Missenbach. And we thank her for taking the time to be here, and we pray for her and her staff in the embassy that God would bless them. We pray for Joe's family, for his dear wife Celine, who is not here, and please bless her and bless his children, Violet, and Bella, and Katrina, and also Nathan, and his grandchildren. that they may long remember and never forget his memory. We pray for his extended family also, and especially those of us who have come to be part of this celebration. Isi taimi o I lunga le a mātou whaamawai, ma mātou te ma malanga ese mai le nei no whaanga, mātou te talo ta maalimangi ina e, pui pui e matai ta ina mātou, I mwhai no mātou tau nuu, I la whanga ma mea o whaamautu wai, I soifo moa man manuia. Mātou te talo mo I ngātou saunia, me tau mawha, I leia whaamalia nei me tau mawha, moe mātou le sino mālosi ma le ola. Mo I lātou fo inga ma saunia, I e rofan whamania I ate I lātou. Mātou te whawhetai le ta mā, o mwhai na mātou whaapoto mai I le nei whale mātou mo whie. E whaamana tuine e ate I mātou. Isi o mātou atu no pe. Mātou te whaatai ate oe mo whamanianga o mua mātou moa, ai meise lava le whamanianga. O le toi tū ma le tongi ola, o loa pele tō tasi, o ne ngalo ia mātia, mātou. O mawhai e mātou, I ngono mālo I o te whaale tino, ma le o te whaale ngana. Mātou te whai le nei tāwa sanga, I le lotu maulau, ma ni whamunianga o e sila fia e te tau mātou, ma e te tau na maua e mātou, o mātou whaatūtua, I ate oe, a whai e tū sai ma lo whina ngalo. Tāwa mole fo mai e te I mātou. I le suafaro ala pele o Yesu Kristo. Amen.
Okay, we have a special group of dancers coming on today. We'd like you to put your hands together. Thank you again for coming this evening. After this dance group, thank you, Max, yourself. We're going to have some refreshments, and then the books are available here. Come and take a look, or come and look at the photos, or come and say hi to us. Keisha will be here to sign the books as well. Thank you, Keisha. Everybody's come a long way, but thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us. We're done. We're going to have a fia. And the refreshments include Coco Samoa. Thank you so much, Kim Kyle, for organizing this, and our uncles, Mami and Kiso. That is Kiso, my dad's brother, and Mami's in the back. All right, ladies. Put your hands together. Let's cheer them on. These are all my pretty cousins. Oh my goodness. I love it. So great to have family. When you have something that's organized, your family steps up to help you. And we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. That really added a nice ending to our program today. Everyone, Keisha will be available here. Please grab some food. Thank you so much for coming. Mix and mingle time, we appreciate it. Pamsai Lama.
don't know the history.
Me? Okay, okay. Okay, okay. Let me grab them. What's your last name? That's right. That's right. What's your same name? She can be here and see
I don't know. I hope not. we do have more.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I'm good, thank you.
Remind me of your name.
Yeah, Birkin.
Birkin. That's right.
Rudolph Peter.
Rudolph, that's right. It's good to see you again.
It's been a while, but well, great job.
Thank you. Am I making this to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it, was it F?
Milton.
Oh, Milton. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. So we, yeah.
Hello, could you make that to Darren? Oh, sorry, well, Darren, D-A-R-R-E, Hunter. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, Hunter. Or Jaeger, I suppose you want to go with the German version. Thank you so much. Can I interview you sometime?
Jared, we've been listening.
Yeah, on a podcast. Thanks so much.
Sorry. Yeah, I know.
Thank you very much. I've got different podcasts. I've got Pacific TV. Could you do this one to Tony Prince? Sorry? Yeah, I'm the one that's picking up for Tony. Okay, so Tony can't make it because he had a very big thing he can't go to. And my mother-in-law just passed away at 3 o'clock, so I come from the hospital straight down. That's okay. She was a Samoan lady, music a prince, so you know, years ago.
What's your first name?
My name is John. Oh, that's right, this is Tony Front. Oh, you can have a message if you want.
What a good looking man. Yeah.
Thank you very much for taking me in. Yeah, I've got different podcasts. How about your home life, I suppose?
German and Samoan.
I've got the same. Yeah, I've got other ones. I've seen TV or something. And some modern history.
Purchased yours already? About that, we want one as well. You want another one? Got it? Wow, all right. There you are. Thank you. It was nice to meet you, Darren.
Nice to
Take
meet you.
care. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, how are you?
Thank you.
This is for HP Ritzler.
Oh, good.
Tisha and Danny. Yeah, he couldn't come.
HP Tisha?
Ritzler. Sorry. Tisha and Danny.
T-I-S.
H-A, yeah. And Danny.
Sorry, just let me out with something. It's working. It's working now, alright?
Sorry, this one's Lauren Ritzler.
Lauren?
Yeah.
L-A-U?
Warren. Sorry, Warren.
Warren, W.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that.
W-A-R-R-E-N?
Yeah.
Okay, Lauren. Oh, no, that's fine, that's fine. Just a couple seconds.
Sorry, so it's M-U-R-R-A-Y. Sarah. family.
Paula?
Yeah. P-A-U-L-A. Yeah. Jason and family. Who am I missing?
So close. Yeah, they can. What? I got 65. US. I think it's on.
Sorry, and that's, okay, so Tumalene, M-A-R-L-E-N-E, Gerwin and family.
Gerwin?
Yeah. And family, sorry. Yes. And I might have to buy some books. Haven't gotten the whole family. Sorry, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Hi.
My name's David.
How are you? Oh, good. I love the Nauer story. You've got some beautiful stories in there. So is this for you?
This one for
Yes,
me.
I
Yep.
do. Okay.
Then I've got a couple for my children, so you could just put through the now or the evening or something.
Okay, yeah. You were just so busy selling. I just barely put time on your and then the Nauer family.
Yes, yes. So where does your last name come from?
The cook. It's done. England, but I don't know.
Oh, you don't.
Not too interesting.
You better write your own book.
Yeah, that's true.
That'll be interesting.
Okay, as long as everybody's patient, I'm totally great.
This way.
How do you say your name?
Asia.
Asia.
Yeah, like Asia with a K in front. Nice to meet you too, David. Thank you for being here. Hi. How are you?
They know.
Amazing that it's done. Finally. Yeah, we'll see what that is. Would you like me to sign it for you? Who would you like me to make it to? C-A-R.
Mama, can I use the card and then I'll transfer because mine is tagged.
Sorry, it won't take. Oh, you didn't have money. I'm so sorry. Carol, what's your last name? Okay. She's my dad's first cousin. Oh, okay. Did you pre-order? No, I bought a shop. Okay. Yeah, they've got right here, that'll help you. Sorry, Carol, I'm just gonna. Sorry, back there. Hi, Trina. Yes, give me a minute while I transfer some for you. Okay, that's fine. Sorry, it'll take me a minute anyway. Okay, so the Naya family. Okay. What? Oh. Do you guys have anything in German? Really? Oh. I didn't know that. Are you going to hang around for a while? This is going to the U.S. Nice, yeah. All right, it's all set. Thank you so much. All right. Jared. Hi. Good, how are you?
Just give you my name.
Yeah.
It's I'll give my fiance. My fiance fills it out. E-L-Y-S-E. And then my name is Paulina. P-O-U.
So to Elise and Paulina?
Yep. P-O-U-L-I-M-A. different masafu to say.
Okay.
And my safune so schmet.
Yeah. I was glad you were there. I saw you and I was like, okay, good, I got it right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Hello, I met you over at our home in Papakura. Paul Meyer. Yeah, I know you've met thousands of people.
No, I'm really grateful to be able to see everyone again.
So just to the Maya thing.
Yeah.
Can you write it for me?
Maya
Tsushrabadis.
Yeah, but let me, well,
no, but that's my brother's book.
I'm just going to look up the spelling. Because it's in
I think
here.
that would be a good tribute to them because it was their grandfather that cut the name short.
Yeah.
Paul said he might renew it.
It's right here.
Yes, that's right.
There it is. The Maya, okay, well, I started writing this.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I'm going to cross it out. The Maya Tsushrabadis.
Sorry, I said it too late.
No, that's my, but now it's hot again.
Because there are so many Mayas, so
It depends. February it is very cold, but not now. Yeah. Warm. Yep. Processing. Perfect. Yeah, that's what can I get for you? Are you just doing one? Okay.
This one's just my brother, not just my brother. He's George, so to George and family.
I'll take that back.
Just a point, but our family, everyone, all the elders in my family kept saying he was a German, but they never got his name and never got what we descend from, so we don't know how to start.
Well, if you know the village, one thing I can recommend is we don't have all of the Samoan names and villages indexed, but if you get the ebook copy, you can do a search for the village and you might be able to start narrowing it down. That's just an idea. Good luck. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Yes. Okay, when? Right now? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, how about right after this? We'll take it. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Who did you say?
Right. First one is to Vernon.
Vernon
Phillips.
Oh, Vernon. Yes. Yeah. Okay. P-H. Right.
P-H-I-L-L-I-S.
Okay. He helped with this, and I'm grateful to him.
He's my cousin.
Sorry. How many of you?
Oh, just one thing. I would have preferred that.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. I can take that from you, the rubbish.
Thank you. I quite heavy too, the books. You know, I can see why it took you 5 years. I'm actually Anne Gordon.
Okay.
It's a long time ago.
Yes, yes, I have emailed it took 5 years.
Very early.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's cool.
Bruce Phillips.
Do you want me to put the last name? Bruce Phillips?
Yeah.
Or just Bruce?
Just Bruce is fine.
Okay. Sorry.
And that one is
Hold on to that. Let me just separate it. It's process.
Elizabeth.
With a Z or an S?
A Z.
Perfect. Everything went great. Sorry, there's a line now for signatures.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll wait to buy yours from the shop again this time.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's where they end up.
Yeah, they will be there. Thank you, Anne. It's nice to meet you.
Well.
Thank you so much. Sorry, we have to take a photo really fast. I'll be right back. Sorry.
Yes.
Where?
Oh, most people know Bocco.
Yeah. This is nice here. Oh, yeah. Right here. Steve is, Steve is Clint's older brother. Oh,
Yeah. So my dad is like.
okay, okay.
Thanks for coming.
That is so fun.
Nice to meet you.
Number 3.
You guys have been to the center.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it feels like sometimes it's a mountain, but it works out. Alright, sorry, I'm just going to double check the numbers. So give me a second so I don't mess it up.
That's the case. I don't.
I live in her shadow.
And you're here, I'm guessing, right? You're local here?
Yeah.
So how long to that? How long to that? We're going to make sure it processes.
I've been here for 3 years.
All right, everything went in just great. Thank you so much.
Jake. We'll see you around. See you at the next reunion.
Okay. Numbers all in the back. Schuster.
So do I need to do anything else? Okay.
Oh, where Didn't work. Didn't work. Is this your part? Let me look at it again. Hold on. Make sure I put it in right. Oh, I know why it applies. Sale out pin. There are 3 numbers. Sorry. 399. That's 3 numbers. Wait. So it better work. Don't worry, it's gonna work. Oh, it worked. It worked. Good job. Thank you so much. All right. Where's our part, I'm guessing? All right. I'll take that sheet. I have to put it in manually. I'm so sorry. So, yes, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, it comes up, I have it as US, but it's going to convert to your. Yeah, so when it goes through your system. Oh, I thought you had. I'll pick up a boy. Yeah.
So they went for that.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you for putting this together.
You are welcome.
Oh my goodness.
You look so familiar. What's your name?
Zisha.
Have we met?
I think so. Funny, I was looking at the further details of Mr. Pingler's Samoa family previously unknown. Well, I'm from there.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, which is great. So thank
Good.
you.
Well, I hope that you'll add to it.
Oh, we will. Yeah.
Who would you like me to write this to?
Just if you write it to
The Kimberly family?
the Archipelago family. AH and then space KIAU.
And you?
Yep. And then the Fremo. So the and then
The?
yep. Sorry. And then Fremo FREMAUX. Yep, family. Thank you.
But I haven't shared them.
Yes, we have. Thank you. Thank you. So lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Take care. That would be the book everybody would read. Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
Just wondering if you could put a name to Conrad and so on.
Okay, is it K or C? 23 that expires? That's 1025. It's 23. And Solana?
No, it's Solana. It's
Just not mine. Okay. Yeah,
Savita.
Yeah,
S-O-V-I-T.
Oh, I'm sorry.
V-I-T.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
There was some time to take the course. S-O-V-I. Yes, great. What a beautiful name. Oh, can I get an email, please? Thank you. Have we met before? You are very lovely. What's your name again? Oh, that's great. Oh, it's wonderful to see you again. Would you like me to make this out to you?
Yeah, but Fred and Margaret, yeah, just to Fred will do.
To Fred? Jen? And Margaret?
Margaret is a little difficult, M-A-R-G-R-I-T.
That's right. Absolutely, I can stand up too. Oh, give me just a moment. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. Right effort, actually.
Thank you. Well, I'm sorry. Congratulations on your pregnancy. Thank you. Going all right?
So I've prepared.
So far, so good.
I got the family photo, that was very nice.
Oh, this is really good. Thank you, Fred, for coming. I'm so glad you finally got a copy. Good. Tell Margaret I said hello. Thank you. Hello. Hi. Rubbish guy. Thank you. He's a rubbish guy. Oh, thank you. Is it J-O-H-N?
So if it will make things easier for you, I'm happy to wait for the mail. Because I've already got the electric one. So that'll be easier for you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. We're doing that. So it's my dad? Yeah. So I'm right, with an E on the end? Yeah, B-E-L-L-E. So good to see you. It's great to see you. So long. I don't even know how long it's been. A long time. 2017.
Yeah, honey, this is Roosevelt. She's Julie's daughter. I don't know if you, the one that gave the prayer. We used to be in YSA together.
Yeah.
In Balmoral Ward years ago.
Because I'm not on Facebook, so I don't like see what you're doing. And, congratulations. Thanks so much. It's so good to see you. Take care. Bye. Hello. How are you?
So this is why I'm saying
Oh, hi. My youngest brother's son.
It's so good to see you. Thank you for being here. Thanks so much.
I was trying to remember your face until you got up.
I know it's hard. And I see people's faces and I recognize them, but I can't remember everything until they say their name.
Elizabeth Wetzel. Put the Wetzel Dean.
Okay, Wetzel Dean. Okay. Now, is it with a Z or a S?
W-E-T-Z.
I mean, you're Elizabeth. Is it with a Z or an S?
Z.
Yeah, Elizabeth Wetzel Dean. Oh, sorry. I'll just go now.
It came for a hardback bonus. But this will do. Bring it on your door.
There you are, my dear. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, you can help take that rubbish and the stuff off. They package these so well. Oh, this one's really tough. They put all this cardboard on the back. Who would you like me to write this to?
To August and Rosa Wetzel and family.
August and Rosa?
Yes. Wetzel.
Oh, no.
To Samoa in the before the First World War as a conscientious objector. Killed in Samoa in both ways. And then lost it. And I found his name was
Both the same? Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. First time.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Hi.
Hi. Sorry, everybody thinks I can.
Got it? Is there a bin or something back there? One hard
Obviously doing well on the hard copies.
We sold out. They were all gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Who can I make this to?
Just to make that to the Tiedemann family.
Tiedemann?
Yep.
Oh, wonderful.
T-I-E D-E-M-A double N.
Yeah. What's your name?
Irvin Tiedemann.
Irvin? Oh, nice to meet you.
Yeah. It's I was saying my friend actually put me on to this happening, so
Oh, good.
I delayed my trip. I went just to come out and see you this as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, this means a lot, eh? I mean, I'm going to catch up with my aunt later on, so
Good.
we'll be going over everything together.
Well, your ancestor is in here, Constance, right? Constance
Yeah.
Tiedemann?
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Bye.
Good
Take
job.
care. Thank you for coming. Is it 2 or 2-5?
Hi.
Hello. Thank you. And then, who do you want me to make this out to?
Steve. Steve Helg's my name.
Oh, Steve, we've been in touch.
Yeah,
haven't
we have, yeah.
Steve Helg, okay. Yeah.
I just found a photo of my grandfather, the first one I've ever seen. My wife Tony sent to me yesterday.
Oh, nice.
I must send it to you.
That's right.
Yeah.
I always see your posts on
Yeah.
the page. Yeah, beautiful. I think I saw that actually because you said
Yeah,
that
I did, yeah.
You just posted it yesterday, I think, right? And is this,
Oh, sorry.
is this for you as well?
Just sign your name if you don't mind.
Okay.
That's yours. Okay. Thank you so
nice
much.
to meet you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Could you sign up for my dad and mom?
Oh, I'd be happy to. Yes.
I'd like that. Thank you.
What's
I'd
your
like
name?
that. Cheers.
Also, if you can say it to dad and mom.
Dad and mom.
And then I'll put your names after. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Steve and Patty. Steve. Steve and Pam.
Thank you, Steve. S-T-E-V-E.
Yeah.
Steve and Pam.
Yep. Thank you. Transfer.
Kyle. Steve and Pam Kyle. Yeah.
So his granddad was the first grandchild of Pam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, the youngest son, Walker.
Yes, well, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wasn't
Oh,
Ireland?
yeah. All right.
So that's our line. That's where we're from. Thank you so much.
Awesome presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So looking forward to reading the book.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for your support.
And hopefully it's reprinted again and again and again.
Yes, it's it. Okay. We're all over it, right?
Thank you so much.
We need funding. Someone send us money. I'm yeah.
Could I have this
Stop
side?
that door.
Yes,
That's what we'll frame this.
For the
in.
two of you?
Yeah.
What are your names?
Just your side.
Oh, just a sign. Okay.
We'll frame that for us. Thank you.
No, my mother-in-law, she's a genealogist, an amateur one, so she'd love that as well.
Oh, good. Well, get another one and I'll sign it for her.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for
Great
being
work, great
here.
work.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hi. Oh, good.
My dad, Carl.
Good.
So, Carl with a K.
Carl's one of my favorite people. So one of my favorites, Carl and Naima. You fed me at your house with Raywin. Oh, I miss her. I know, I miss her. Honey, I served my mission in the temple with Carl. It's Carl's cousin, right? Or Naima, is it your cousin? Raywin. She was one of my close friends. And oh yeah, I love her. Okay, to Carl and Naima, right? Okay.
Thank you for taking care of her.
Yes. They did. They fed me in their home, and we spent hours talking. Difficulties. 1, 2, 3. Carl is a legend, honey. Carl, he's an amazing man. He helped a lot of people, a lot. He taught, and he has a Queen's Service Medal. Yeah, recognition by the Queen. Oh, happy birthday!
But we were so happy that you're coming to sign the book.
Oh, I'm so glad. Absolutely, yeah. And email me if you have any questions. They have my email, I'm sure, but you can get a hold of me through the book, the Germans and Samoa book at gmail.com. Okay, so yeah. Or there's a couple of Facebook pages. So
Ja, German and German.
Vielleicht in Deutsch. Wirklich? Wow, das ist eine große Arbeit. Toll. That would be great.
To meet them.
Hey! Okay, thank you. It was nice to meet you. Bye. Oh,
Got a couple here.
oh, I love your top. That's so
Thank
cute.
you.
All right, who would you like to
So this is for Ida.
Okay, what's your name?
I'm Stacey, but this is Ed. He's a Johnston.
You guys look
Online,
familiar. Online.
You're the bouncer as well.
So this is for Ida.
This is my mum.
IDA. Yep. And we wanted to say Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, that's such a nice gift.
I'll be writing. She's a Schmidt from the Beacon side.
Hey, are you sure we have a
90?
Because I'm thinking the Schmidt.
93.
Oh, wow. Good
Yeah,
for her.
so.
All right, who's this one for?
So this is for we're just going to put it for the Schmidt family.
Okay.
Yeah. This is just awesome. I can't wait to read it.
Oh, thank you. I hope you enjoy it.
You're,
Thank you so much.
You're telling us about it.
Yeah. So what did you do while this was
Thank
happening?
you.
Yes, ma'am.
Coffee. Make dinner.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
It's about teamwork, eh?
Yes.
I'm sure that my brothers and all my family will be inspired to do a Schmidt one now.
Oh, yes.
Why we, eh? It's been a few years.
And are you from the Albert family?
Bismarck.
Bismarck. Okay, yeah.
No, everyone's represented. No, I'm sorry. Albert, yeah. Albert,
and then Bismarck. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
There is Andrew was here. There is a Smith family history book that just came out, isn't there? Or there was going to be a
bit of
Schmidt.
mafia in there as well.
Yeah.
Don't say too much.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'll come and
who would you like this?
I just got the Schmidt Inga.
The Schmidt Aina?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. You didn't have the Hagedorns in there, did you?
Hagedorn, yeah, they're in here.
And yeah. Oh, that's my luxe one. Oh, God.
Thank you so much for your
You're going to put the Schmidt and Hagedorn sign on there.
Okay, this one I can do. Thanks for
I got all books. I get all 4 books.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I have to look at the...
Sorry about that.
I learned Hagedorn, wasn't I?
I've got to remember and
yeah, it's okay. I'll look.
right here, yeah.
Yeah.
Georg Wilhelm.
Yeah, that's
There he is, right there, page 91.
cool. In case you have to see some others.
No, he doesn't.
Be careful, they're too addictive.
Beautiful. And go and wait and make you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Who would you like this name to? Dan? Oh,
That's
thank
my
you.
name.
Thanks for writing it, Danny. Thank you.
Did you come across Papota Kills school in Samoa?
The which one?
Papota Kills. School.
So, I don't think so.
The German influence.
Just great.
School. Hauptsache.
Volta, yes. There were 3 sisters that worked in that school. Yes. Thank you, Danny.
All the best in your work.
All the best. Thank you so much. Hi, ladies.
Hi, Talofa.
Talofa. Who is this for?
Joe and Tammy.
Joe and Tammy?
Yep.
J-O-E? Okay. And T-A-M-M-Y. And I can smell that cocoa Samoa from here. I'm so hungry. Making your mouth water. Who is this one for?
Mom and Dad.
Mom and Dad?
That's an easy one. Just
Okay.
Mom and Dad. Makes it easier for you.
No. I'm going to focus. We're almost there. Patricia, you doing okay? Does she need anything? Maybe some nourishment?
Thank you. Well
I'm
done.
good. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Oh, that's perfect. Thank you for buying free one. I love your dress.
Oh, thank you very much. That one is to Eleanor Nelson Hall.
Okay, can you spell it?
Yeah, E-L-E-A-N-O-R. Nelson, N-E-L-S-O-N. Hall.
Oh,
That's okay. H-A-L-L.
I'm sorry, I had to call. I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
Thank you. And this one is for
We're not married yet. You'll get invites for the wedding.
Messaging us and making sure
I know. She was like, oh, I just got like, she was like, I just got Katrina Kyle. Yeah, I don't know. Like, oh, that's my cousin.
That's
She's
right.
like, oh.
Tuisila. T-U-I-S-I-L-A.
Yeah. Well, I told her to like tell you that.
I'm really glad she did because I would never.
Yeah.
Jacinta, is she in our family?
No, her dad is Otto Nelson, who we're talking about Uncle Boy there, my uncle, so yeah, it's funny. And that one is for me, so Otessa.
Can you take your rubbish?
Oh, thank you so much. O-T-E-S-S-A. And family. Or T. No, that's great. Family, yeah. My kids.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much.
Can't wait to read this.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I know.
All over the mat. Please, if you could. Thank you.
Absolutely. Who is this for?
I'll just make it out to me. It's to David Ellery.
David.
Ellery, E-L-L-E-R-Y.
C-R-Y.
Thank you.
And we don't have a local.
I don't have a connection, well, the only connection I have to the German side is my great-grandfather worked for DHBG at the time. He was Norwegian. Close enough.
Yeah.
Olaf Robeck.
Oh, yeah, the Robeck,
Yeah,
yes.
quite well known, yeah.
I think, let me see this for a second.
Yeah, he was a harbour master and captain of one of their boats that used to go up to the islands. I thought he might be in here, that's why...
Did you check it?
No, but it doesn't matter because I just want to get a feel for those who
Well,
colonised.
he's mentioned, I would check the index because
Yes.
I had something about Robeck. Oh, I have Matilda Robeck. Anyway,
Yeah.
I know
but
that
it's the
name.
human side that you're
Yes.
capturing, that's what I want to say.
Yes.
Thank you very
Oh,
much.
thank you for coming, David. Thank you. Hi.
My name is Katerina.
Katerina Kyle.
I'm Katerina Kyle.
If you want it.
This is Katrina
Kyle.
Katrina Kyle at her dad's funeral.
Oh, okay. So it's Katerina. Okay, so it's
K-A-T-E-R-I-N-A. And Lani, my mum.
So do you want it to say Katerina Kyle? Or just Katerina and Lani?
Just Katerina and Lani. L-A-N. Yeah, I met Katrina at Dad's funeral.
Oh, okay.
Because Uncle
Joe would always call me Katrina. He goes, I said, you're the only person on the planet that's allowed to slide in and tap it, and it doesn't work here as well. So it's hard to use the computer. Thank you for coming. Thank you. So actually, eggs.
So that's how they look like. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, I'll try. Hey you. Oh, you guys.
Yes, I am. Yeah, oh my gosh, I love every minute of this presentation. You know you're my favorite teacher.
Just the way that you speak.
Sunday school teacher.
This is there.
Sandy was one of the travel crew.
Yeah, we all traveled together and
Yeah, and we've all heard her project.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
You can also join Jared. You can also join Jared.
Okay.
Lolo, do you want to stand up? Okay. Back up. 1, 2, 3, 5.
Well, I'll catch up.
Congratulations, I want to cry. I'm not going to be in the dinner, that's why we lined up.
You should be there.
Man, I'm touring my parents.
Okay, what do you want me to say?
And happy Mother's Day. Oh, thank you. Because I know you. Hello. Nice to meet you, Jared. We're just the fun travel group that Keisha had when she was in New Zealand. So it was
How
really
does it feel
nice.
that you're really famous?
I know.
That's awesome.
Congratulations. And we're just happy Keisha has you and you have her.
Oh, I want to cry. I love
I
Keisha.
still don't get it. I think she just gave up looking. She's like, I'll take him.
No. Sometimes I think about it.
We'll see you tonight.
Ooh, I'm so sad I'm going to see him. Thank you.
Are you taking off?
Okay, I love you. I'll see you tonight.
See you tonight.
Okay, thank you. Love you guys. Bye.
So glad to
Bye.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you. Do you mind just opening this for me?
That's a beautiful.
Here's my.
Okay, who would you like to say?
This is for the Wolf family.
The Wolf family.
Yes.
Were you the one who wrote? What's your name?
So I'm Lisa Wolf. My great-great-grandfather is Hans Dietrich.
Okay.
So then Edward Tom is my great-grandfather. And then my papa is Edward Tom. He migrated to New Zealand in 1951. So that's from the Takataka Couch area. Putasi and
Yes. I don't remember if I saw him. Possible. Yes, I know his to the Wolf family.
Show me where those are.
Really looking forward to reading.
Thank you. I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Just with your new one arriving soon.
What's that?
With your new initial one
Oh, thank
arriving
you.
soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just glad I'm feeling better. Hello. How are you?
I was saying just but I use a lot of frameless work.
Oh, yeah.
I just published mine in Samoa.
Okay. Did you were the one who just finished
yeah.
I was reading the news
Oh,
article
good.
about
Yeah,
you.
okay.
Yes, congratulations. That's a huge achievement. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here.
I'm so sorry. Yes, love.
He just finished his PhD in Samoan, and you wrote the whole thing in Samoan, right? He's only the second one to have ever written a full PhD.
We got love. That's amazing.
Wow.
provisional expressions of it.
Wow.
And somebody, a German scholar came across, he wanted to finish off, what's his name? Not Schultz.
Which one? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the one you were talking about.
Okay.
We had a tattoo.
Oh yeah, Dr. Schultz.
Yeah,
Dr. Schultz.
But he didn't return to me. Somebody else was done it.
Oh, yeah.
Finish up the work.
Yeah. What's your name? What would you like me to put in this? Oh, do you want to do this? Okay. So, about A-V-A-O? Oh, sorry. Okay. About
So the article right up in the website.
Yeah, I read it last night. I saw.
All right, yeah. Yes. Okay.
Can I take a selfie? It's Kasia. Kasia. No, like Asia with a K in it.
German.
It's English, but it's just my parents like the name. It was so nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. That's all right. Hi, how are you? Good, thanks. Good.
We're all together.
Oh,
These are my
great.
daughters.
Hi. Okay, remind me of your name.
Well, my grandfather was Graf.
Okay, did we meet before? Oh, you look very
I look like-
familiar.
I look like
Okay.
it.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not a bad face, you know. Who would you like me to make this out to?
It's in the Graf thing.
Okay, it's just one F, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, the old way is with just one, so I just want to, but sometimes it changes.
I'm going to play down at class. I can see a thing or a space. Oh no, yes. Julius.
Julius, yeah. Yes. Who is this one for?
And it's Jasmine and Ina.
Yeah, J-A, you let us know.
J-A-S-M-I-N-A. Yes, I think they
And Aina,
yeah.
Thank you for writing this book also. I think it's going to be very good for a lot of people. Thank you. I hope so. You are welcome. My pleasure. Stop. And who is for this one? It's to Salafina. Yeah. Can you spell it for me?
S-E-L-A-F-I-N-A.
No, I used to when I was younger. Not anymore now, man. Stay busy.
Every 5 years. So it's just telling me your sister, right? Could we please also take a selfie? Absolutely. You want a selfie or my husband can take it for us? Yeah. Sure thing. I'm volunteering you. Thank you. Is it Yeah, we used to be in the same, go to the church together. Yeah. And then I found out later that he's Joe's brother.
Yes.
We were able to do some good lighting. Yes, you're very nice and interesting.
No, until 2017. So you're permanently in there.
Oh.
Well, we didn't know, and when he found out, he pretty much went home, spent 1 week there, and then was in the U.S. up until 2 days before he passed away, when the doctor said there's no more. I do when I come back. Rushed. Did I forget? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How are you? Good, thank you. Good. Like when we get this work, it's only paying for a week to wrap things up. Wonderful. Who should I make this to?
And then he never came back to Theodore.
T-H?
T-H-E-O. By the time we started tracking on the it was hard, but we were hoping that when we got home, he would like find his strength, relax, but it's 2 days.
J-E-double-M-E-L. J-E-double-M-E-L. This one's like way better because I pre-ordered.
I'm before with lady here. I have got my phone, sorry. Leilani.
K-N-I-S-H-A. Yeah, I know. I want to try to remember. Hey, look who's this we saw today. No, he didn't. Like, no, immigration kerfuffle. She didn't realize her visa was expired. When we got to the airport, they're like, you can't afford it. She thought she had it. Hey, those C-O-C-O-M-A-N Okay. So, she just said, oh, it'd be lovely to see. Oh, she we're like, wait, thank you for being here. Thank you. Hi. Basil.
You couldn't have contacted the consulate here and done something? You didn't have time.
I don't think so. They contacted the immigration and they said, well, since you guys get their checking right now, then it's going to keep coming up.
No, I just like the,
We don't know all the right people.
I think so.
He's not around to take care of it. Who is this to?
Leilani.
L-E-I?
L-A.
Jared, this is L-E-I? Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that. I tried. Some of the longer names I have a harder time with, and because I learned Tongan first, sometimes coming back to Samoan, I mispronounce the T's and everything. No, I'm not. I just started learning it because I wanted to travel. So on my dad's side, my third great grandparents. How are you? Oh, how wonderful. We just went, we were just there on Thursday. So nice to meet you.
lovely presentation. That's to Battle Windy.
How do you spell it?
P-A-apostrophe-U. A-apostrophe-U and Wendy.
And Wendy.
Yeah, and could you write down my first book launch?
My first book launch?
No, my one.
Oh, your
It's
first
my
book
my first one that I attended.
So what, your first book launch?
Yeah, my first book launch. Attending my first book launch.
Are you enjoying it so much?
Really, really great.
I know, I have to go and wait in the kitchen. Because they ran out. Oh, yeah. I'm all like, what? Because they were making some more. That's good. They're
My
making
first book
everybody
launch.
too. Okay. And they brought me here.
So, lama kasi,
Thank you so
okay.
much. Thank you for
Hi,
being here. Hi, lovely to meet you. Hi. You look familiar. Have we met before? No, we've communicated on email. I'm Laura. Laura? Yeah. She's another Kyle. Oh, okay. Nice to meet you too. Yeah, please. Glad it didn't do that. So just a Laura Kyle hyphen you're going to spell L-A-U-R-A. Yes. So Kyle P-I-S hyphen Rosemary, Kyle. fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming.
Hi. Sorry, you must be tired.
No,
we just wanted to say hi. I'm Diana Feig. I'm at the German department, so we must have missed each other for days.
When did you start?
Because I arrived in 2017, July.
Okay, yeah. I left in May.
Yeah, so that's why we never met in person. Now you're in the US, right?
Yes.
So congrats on your book.
Thank you.
Great work.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I've been thinking of Jim obviously these days. You as well. Are you in touch with him?
Yes, I think he watched the live stream. He told me he would. I hope so. He was going to try to be here, but of course with his health. Yeah. Yes, I'm so glad he's okay.
So yeah, we are impressed with your work, and we still try to integrate this topic in our teaching, the German connection with the Pacific.
So glad.
So I'm happy to put the book in our course teaching.
Thank you.
So
Did you meet the ambassador? Yeah, she said she's interested. My mother did. Okay, well, you'll have to tell her that I missed seeing her. Thank you. I'll be back.
Victoria.
William and Victoria.
Oh, okay.
So of the nine. She's the only girl. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here.
I met you in Samoa, but just briefly.
Okay, yeah, because you look very familiar. Who would you like me to write this to?
Oh, Elva and Harry.
A-L-V-L?
It'll be great. Got a lot to read now.
Oh,
I'm going to take it with me to Dubai and read all the stories. Saturday.
What are you going to Dubai for?
I used to live there.
Really?
Well, Harry was a pilot there for how many years?
18 many years.
So many pilots in your family. I love Dubai. Thank you. We've met before. We met at the funeral, I think. Oh, so nice to see you again. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Is this for you? Thank you. Would you like me to write this to you?
We're saying there must have been a reason.
There must be.
Yeah, I mean, if we thought, it's all taken care of.
You knew my wife as well.
Okay, what's her name?
June.
J-U-N-E?
She's really sad. Me and Nathan cried on the plane.
She might be relieved.
We might get together.
She's staying.
We're not going to stay. Thank you, Aleki. It's nice to see you again.
Well, 2 days. I was going to be here.
Okay, here you go. Thank you.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. My name is Delicious German.
Oh, lovely to meet you. Schwager.
I'm looking forward to reading it.
Good.
So if that one tonight, we can make it up to me, Delicious German.
Okay, how do you spell your first name?
D-A-M-I-I.
D-A-M?
Nelly.
Oh, that's beautiful. Schwager.
Because you're going to eat there and you're going to the food day, which is in the afternoon. And it's in the afternoon and it's
This one is going to be to Daniel, Jordan, and Jasmine.
Okay.
They're my children.
D-A-N-I-E-L?
Yep.
And then how do you
Jordan.
We have no
And Jasmine is Jasmin. And grandchildren.
3 boxes left.
Add them in.
30 boxes. Yep. It's not
I don't know where the crystal goes.
presentation? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
We'll make that one out to my to Renee.
How do you spell it? Frustration, right?
I'm here for fun, yes.
That's for me,
What's your name?
Hans Schwager.
We met before, didn't we?
Yes, you came to my place in Henderson.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You helped me. You gave me a lot of information. Did you get it?
Did I?
So much.
I feel
believe so,
guilty
yeah.
because I was supposed to get back to you with more, and I never got around to it.
Well, shame on you. I'm kidding. Hans, it's lovely to see you again. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Take care. Good to see
Pleasure.
you. Bye. Hi. I would. Will you remind me of your name? I feel like
I'm gonna send this one to my mom.
Okay.
Elisabetta Leben.
Okay. Elisabetta. So
just as it, yeah, S-A-P-E-T-A. Leben, L-A-B-A-N.
Okay.
And then whatever you want.
And
Thank you so much and congratulations.
Thank you. What's your name?
My name's Lisa.
Lisa. Okay. Okay. It's nice to see you, Lisa. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. Congratulations on your work.
Oh, Josh.
Nice to meet you.
Sorry, Natalie. Yeah. Hi, nice to meet you. AJ,
Yeah, that's how.
you're in the White Face. Yeah. Yeah. This is my husband, Jared.
Nice to meet you. So you guys living in Texas now?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. San Antonio?
Fort Worth.
A couple hours north of San Antonio. Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, cool.
Thanks so much for coming.
Ah, yeah.
guys. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the history and everything. So, do you have any soft copies?
Yes, yeah. Get the
What?
girls over here.
Yeah, no rush. No, that's amazing work. So it's awesome. You're probably get a lot of questions about being anxious and what got you started. And
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's nice that it's done.
Yeah, I bet.
It's been such a long
It's a
time.
massive project there. Like,
Yeah.
I was thinking about, it makes you appreciate all the people that do this kind of work. It's just like, that's a lot of work. And I think about my own family shit. And that's time to me. Like, you can imagine correlating all this information, curating it, and documenting it, and then compiling it to in a book.
I
amazing.
was thinking the other day, like, I need to go back and look at the record, like how much time it actually took, but it was a long time. I mean, it took about 2 years to write altogether, and then extra, like another 6 or 8 months to do it, or maybe longer. It's a long time.
Keep a logbook of that as well. Like,
Yeah.
so you can go back and see
how much
the total time and hours, the labor. Oh, wow, that's cool. Yeah.
I should go back and look.
Yeah, you should have done that because that would have been a fun fact. And
Yeah.
it would have made people appreciate
That's true,
the work.
actually,
They would
yeah.
say, oh, wow, yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
3,000 hours.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time.
Oh, yeah, that's wild. So, how's it like coming back to New Zealand?
So nice. We just got here last night from Samoa, so I was telling him, I hope we have some time today that we can like just walk around.
Yeah, sure.
But I almost got lost today. I was like, it's been too long. I don't even remember where I'm at. All the construction.
Has it changed?
That was my office, like right over there. So I'm like, I'm gonna go check it out now. Like, from now. Yeah, fireworks from church tomorrow. Until Wednesday, so it's kind of quick.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, cool. Oh, enjoy your trip. Is this your first time to New Zealand then? Yeah. Awesome.
What are you guys doing?
We live in Hamilton now, so.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Did you drive up just for this?
Yeah, we did.
Well, I hope you enjoy a nice day.
No, we did, yeah. No, it's good. We're going to spend the weekend up there anyways. We've seen a lot of family in Auckland, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so
What are you guys doing?
so I'm working down there now, so I'm a data scientist for Gallagher. It's like one of the big companies in Hamilton. It's a global company, but it's founded in Hamilton, New Zealand. So the guy, the founder, he was the one that invented the electric fence. They went worldwide. Yeah, I didn't know that until I worked there. Why I did my research. Yeah, Bill Gallagher. He won like a Nobel Prize, Science Prize. This is like the 1930s. Yeah, from Hamilton.
That's so cool.
Invented electric fence, and then it took off around the world. And now they do a lot of security systems now. They've made it more famous than that today. So the concept from electric fencing was to keep stock in and keep predators out. And now that same concept of securing, now we do security systems for companies. So I imagine Gallagher probably does all community, swipe tags and all that. We're big in New Zealand and Australia. We're actually tapping into the American market. So we're kind of slowly getting to Missouri and things like that. So maybe Texas one day, who knows? So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, so that's what I do, yeah.
You guys have 2 kids?
Get 2 little girls, yeah.
How old are they?
Yeah, likewise, yeah. How many kids you guys?
We've got different.
Yeah, I want to see that we're separate.
I wish I had really fun for them. We have in October.
Yeah, cool.
I was so sick the last couple months, so I'm like,
No, Harry
It's
said.
quite the heat. It's
Oh, Harry was great.
actually, it wasn't too bad over there. I mean,
So here's my Jerry.
Yeah. Well, because Texas is quite hot as well, eh? Yeah.
not
Hey, I'm the Samoan next. Great.
Yeah,
And let me just take care of Auntie.
Hi.
Alva. Jill? Yeah.
Oh, hi Gladys. It's wonderful to have you here with us.
Still doing some. Because I felt it wasn't working. Yeah, working, and so we're like cash.
Very quickly, I'm Emma. I'm Dr. Emma Kuzebai from National University of Samoa.
Hi.
So congratulations.
Nice to meet you. I've heard your name before, the Exquisite family. Yes. Wonderful to see you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Can I get a photo of you guys? And then two, right? Two soft
Yeah,
cups.
just 2. I got one. I paid cash for the other one because I thought it was only cash. And I didn't have enough money.
I never carry cash. I have no cash on me right now.
I like carrying cash because you just never know when you need it.
I'll get cash and within a day it's gone. So then I just
that's the trouble.
I just don't replenish. It went through just great. Thanks, Auntie.
Okay. So
Thank you, ma'am.
oh.
Yeah.
Oh, here.
Yeah. I am just so looking forward to reading this. How are you feeling? Do you want some food? In a minute. We're just so happy. We're so happy to have you all here. So excited. We're so excited. Thank you. And tomorrow.
My little lover husband.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right because there's going to be plenty of other people who are going to be there.
I know.
You guys are coming in.
I'm the second job.
Pleasure meeting you.
It's all right. I'll send them to you. Do you remember Jared and Lisa?
Good to see you. And you know what?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
If he couldn't find him, he'll come into my office in town looking for him. He'll find out.
I wish, I was just saying, if I'd seen the guitar earlier,
Yes, we did.
have a jam.
He's a really. Hey, you're a runner, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes, he runs races in Samoa. Oh, this guy, he's the man. Thank you for coming.
We'll see you in Samoa.
Okay, see you, Joe. Thank you. I'll come see you the next time I'm there.
My grandmother's water.
Yes. Yeah. We just go. Okay. Hi. Who do you want me to write it to?
So my name's Crystal. I'm K-R-I-S-T-A-L.
Okay.
And my husband's name is Manu.
And Manu.
Yes. M-A-N-U.
I'm working for Gallagher, data scientist.
Cannot wait.
Oh, thank you for the beautiful dance. That was so
No,
you guys did a
for
great job.
coming and for doing this.
Oh, my
for our
pleasure so
family.
much. Thank you.
And all of the ancestors.
I'm so glad. I hope. Oh, okay. Yeah.
My dad's first cousin.
Right.
Remember
Okay.
the one
Yeah, we
that's
just met.
the one.
Yeah.
The one daughter's
Yeah.
daughter.
Yeah.
one, but my grandmother lived with my sister.
Sorry. Thank you again. Thank you. I think we have time to chat. Yeah, let's talk. Can you help me? Yeah, I'll try. I got it. Stop it. Do you want it opened and signed by the Huh? All right. Sorry, this is my job. She'll take care of it. Bella wants to know the details.
Yeah, I know. She like knowing the connection.
I won't remember. She's our family story.
Oh, yeah, right? We need to say we're online.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much. Bye.
To do the same thing for people, so I understand.
Keisha, congratulations, my lover. How does it feel?
Thank you. Oh, yeah, I'm so happy to celebrate Joe and everything. It's been such a long time coming, and I've felt him hanging over me for years, so it's a really good feeling to know that we can lay him to rest and lay this project to rest. That's a great feeling.
Just seeing the the people who are all here from different strands of the German-Samoan community. What have they been telling you?
They have all been talking about how they're so excited to read the book and to see the stories in it. I had a woman come up to me from the Paymurler line, and this was so exciting because when we were writing the book, I didn't have a lot of information about the Paymurlers and wasn't able to find too much about the descendants. And she said, "This is my family." So I'm excited for the contributions that will come from the families to contribute to what is in the book right now.
Just how important is it to chronicle the history of the connection of Samoa, Germany, Tonga? What's it been like for you?
It's been an amazing experience for me, especially because it's a community that has welcomed me and taken me in. It's not my home community, and I'm so thankful for the people who have been so kind and open and generous with me with their stories. But I think it's important for all of us to know where we come from, and that gives us strength to our identity and helps us to confront the challenges that we face in life. So I think all of the connections and all of the history is important because it gives us that foundation that we all stand on.
So any other books in the pipeline?
Well, now I've actually started a company that we help people write their life stories and their family histories. So I have done some more work in the Pacific since then. We started in 2020, and I'm hoping that we can do more. But we're working all over the world with people and their family stories. So lots of books coming out, but privately. Yeah.
What will you take away from this experience in Tonga and Samoa? What does it mean to you?
It means a lot to me, and it's for me it all comes down to love. The love that people have shown me and trusting me, again welcoming me into their community and to their ainga, the Kyle family and everything that I've experienced with them and with Joe, the trust that he had in me and the responsibility he gave to me, and then just carrying that forward. When Joe was alive, there were several times he just treated people so well, and he treated me so well. He made me feel special just being around him, and I remember several times thinking, that's how I want to make people feel. And so the example of people like that, carrying that forward and bringing that love and that ofa to people in the future, that's what I hope to take from this.
Congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Sliva, S-I-L-I-V-A. Yep.
Okay. I don't know which is better.
Thank you. Thanks for Oh, absolutely. Would you like one together? My husband can take it for us.
Oh,
as well. Okay. Yeah, you've got somebody. Okay.
You can come in the middle. There's two of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Is this
All right.
good?
Yep.
Sorry, I'll move over this way. All right, cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for being
Thanks,
here.
mate. Awesome. It was good. Very good.
Thank
I've
you.
never been to one before, so.
I've never done one before.
Good to
So.
find out about the family history. Yay.
Which family are you from?
I'm from Palestine, but my father's a Gallagher.
Oh, okay.
So Gallagher and Mary.
Good. Who would you like me to write this to?
Just going out to
Sasha and Jared? Jared?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. S-A-R. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have asked.
That's all right.
I'm going to cross that out, and I hope you'll forgive me for that.
It's all right. It makes it more
It
authentic,
makes
doesn't
it-
it? It makes it look like you actually signed it.
I'm going to put a smiley face.
We will get a quick photo with you.
Oh, yes, absolutely. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, you're Sasha? Hi, nice to meet you. Oh, thank you. Thanks for being here.
All right.
You want to hold the book?
Okay, well, other side. Here you go. Thank you. Was it too much smoke? Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, hang on just a second. Oh, I know. I was just staring What's your name? Oh, your dad is Conrad. Yeah, I just saw him 2 days ago, I think. Yeah, he was at the other meeting. Oh, nice to meet you. My grandmother was here. Yes, yeah, I saw Frida on Thursday. No, you come too. My husband can take it tomorrow. It was so lovely to get it. Yeah, come you can dress that matches the shirt. Lucky I found one.
Or maybe we'll have you in the middle. No? Was that good? Okay, that's all right.
3, 2, 1.
Vita, hold your book. Sorry, we'll just get rid of this book. And then, yeah, hold your book. You come in the middle. Okay.
Yeah, bank transfer or Visa.
She's a reader this one.
I saw your book. I gotta give you a hug for that. Yeah, okay. Thanks for coming.
Sorry, that was great.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Thank you.
So when do you head back home? Wednesday.
So
So you live there?
we live in Texas, in the U.S. Yeah. Oh, really? What part? Are they Kyle's? Oh. Oh, okay. I'm trying to remember if they're in the book. I had some names that were. I can't remember. I'll have to check. There were a couple names that were like really German.
Okay. Yeah, please do.
We got you some cocoa right here.
Do you want to see if there's any hidden in her, hidden in the back of her?